When there's nothing left but the fire in my chest and the air that fills my lungs, I'll hold my tears and trade my ears for a glimpse at kingdom come. On the other side of misery, there's a world we long to see. The strife we share will take us there to relief and sovereignty. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. In our own towns, we're foreigners now. Our names are spat and cursed. The headline smack of another attack, not the last and not the worst. Oh, my fathers, they look down on me. I wonder what they feel to see their noble sons driven down beneath a coward's heel. Oh, my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. The road is dark, the way is lost. My eyes, they strain to see. I struggle forth to find a friend to light the way for me. Oh, brothers, can you hear my voice, or am I all alone? If there's no fire to guide my way, then I will start my own. Oh, my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home.
Dixie Fest, just getting back. We're going to be talking about it, all of the ups, and if there were any downs, and what we can learn from that festival down in the great state of South Carolina. You don't give them the names of their taking, and you do not take the names of their giving. A critical MC in service to white well-being. If you don't adopt this, you've got no hope whatsoever. The MP today, we have to take care of non-white people. It's our moral, ethical responsibility. We'll break that down into pieces. We're going to have the great Carlisle Cockatoo on with us to discuss homeschooling. She happens to have been homeschooled and gone to college as a child, as a consequence of her latent abilities that were brought out. And she has quite a bit to say, especially about those who think that they're going to be protected just by keeping their kids home from school. Your comments, some of your calls, and all the adult children out there who are watching or listening with their parents, what's the difference between a guitar and a fish? Well, you can't tune a fish. And a good Sunday evening, Monday morning to all of you. We are going free, and it could not be more exhilarating than to be those who are in service to white well-being, who are using what is effective, who are transforming our own lives, transforming the lives of those around us, bringing those in our circles of influence over to the service of white well-being. It's an exciting time to be succeeding, to be victorious. When this is an age where so much is being lost, where there's so much inertia from the past of how to do things the wrong way, and folks continue with the wrong way. We are an hour and a half late today, but that's because I was in the air. I live very close, sort of, to Dulles Airport, where I landed, and so it's amazing how 100 miles an hour can cross the landscape really quickly in an automobile. But it's great to see all of you. Let's see, Simon is with us, Brand Danger, Azimuth Clark. Great to see you all. B. Volkish, Classical European, Franklin. Let everybody know that we are going free. We're not going to miss a day unless we absolutely have to, but then we'll catch right up. And this, though, won't be one of those days, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know how the mic is working. I'm very excited to be here, sliding in here after being down in the sultry southern state of South Carolina, only to come back up to Virginia and find out that Virginia is a southern state that is more sultry on this particular day. If you would like to make a comment or give a financial gift, you will be able to do so over on Entropy in just a moment. And good, it is up and running and functioning properly. You can make your comment in the Tall Kevin widget, also known as the question widget. You can vote on comments there. If you're new, you never heard of this before, the URL is in the description below. You can leave those comments there as long as you like. Only you or I delete them. They cannot be scrolled off of the screen as happens on all of these other platforms. You can financially gift over there at a cost of 15% to you. 15% to you. That goes to the wonderful people who maintain freedom of speech at Entropy. You can, however, financially gift over on Cash App at no cost to you. The URL for Cash App is in the description below as well. You may also financially gift with cryptocurrencies, and you can get over to the cryptocurrency addresses by going to nowhiteguilt.org. Nowhiteguilt.org. Look at the financial gift tab. Click on that. You will see the cryptocurrencies that are available for financial gifting. And you will also see a snail mail address at which you can write me snail mail, and I will be able to get anything that you send there, hopefully all good things. And I have some very exciting things to show for you all today. We don't have any anonymous financial gifts over the course of the week, so we will just move right along. You may remember Ethereum, I think, is still doing very well, and so is Bitcoin. So you could do a lot of good with the financial currencies if you so desire. I still have a couple of things to pull up. It's been a long day already. Here it is 6:39 p.m. Eastern Time, United States. Back in Virginia, right across the gross Potomac River and Mordor there, and all that they do in Washington, D.C., capital essentially of the world. So I'm happy to be with you all. I hope everybody is doing wonderful. Please post your questions. You may do so on YouTube. They come up on the monitors to my right, your left, or over on D Live, or on what is this? Odysee, I guess, is the newest one. Odysee as well. And I see that there's a few people over there. Buscador, hello to you. Paul is over there. Hello. Chad, hello to you. Joseph, wonderful to see you all over there. And how about D Live? I see Sterling Price, and there's the great Raymond. And sorry I missed your phone call, brother. I was racing to get here and to make this happen for everybody, because we're not going to miss a day, especially when things are going so well for us in service to white well-being. It just doesn't get any better. People I talked to over the past 2 days, 3 days, I guess, total, and they being amenable, having sometimes only heard of me, not even heard of me from what I'm doing and have been doing online for the past 5 years, but 6 years, whatever it is now. But from all of my work in the preceding years, having heard of me all the way down in South Carolina, which of course makes perfect sense because of how busy I've been over the years. So I've had a couple of those conversations. People saying, "You're on YouTube too? I didn't know that. I just remember you from this." And I remember you. I remember I attended a meeting where you spoke, and one of those meetings we had a couple people start crying. I thought it might have been tears of joy. It was a bit of both, I think. People being afraid of what had to be done, and it wasn't violence that I was calling for. It was something that takes much more internal strength than violence. It takes much more fortitude. It takes much more intelligence. It takes much more self-control and tenacity. And that, of course, is not for the lighthearted. That, of course, is not for the childish. That, of course, is not for the lame-brained. That is for the adults in the room. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the AP class. Please check your class schedule. If you don't see AP up in the corner, that means you're down the hall with the mid or midget wits. They have plenty of room down there, I can assure you, and a lot of those cone caps. Face the wall for all of those morons. Fledgling is over there on D Live. Great to see you. Western Wallace, Internal Explorer, who is sharing, trying to, I guess, Internal Explorer and Raymond are trying to trip me up here by having these gifts with lovely ladies blowing kisses at me. And that is well done, gentlemen. Well done. So let's get right into it. Coconut is here. Great to see you. And you have that for sure. No Wine Guild. And you have that for sure. The calmest person I know is you. Well, we have to be sang-froid. We have to be. And a genuine leader, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of person that can go into a hostile situation. Look at our greatest leaders. And this is a conversation that we had quite a little bit about over the course of this weekend, because so many Southerners, we really venerate our great generals who fought against impossible odds and achieved magnificent victories, one right after the other, against impossible odds. And yet, of course, it was a foregone conclusion virtually from the beginning of that conflict. That is the war for Southern independence, and which is what it should only be referred to as, because, of course, the United States had a far larger population. The United States had almost every single one of the factories that when they were united, North and South, had almost all of the factories were in the North, and so that became the United States. So it was almost a foregone conclusion. But we venerate these great generals, but so many individuals, and this holds true all around Western civilization, this worship of ashes rather than the flame, the biospirit that roared and breathed life into such individuals, that cause us to want to build magnificent monuments to these individuals, that cause us to turn out in droves to lay flowers at their graves and add these beautiful statues that, of course, are being white erased. We just saw the Robert E. Lee statue get white erased from Charlottesville. How many of you are going free well enough that you were able, when you heard this news, that you knew exactly how to handle this? You knew exactly what was going on. You knew to call it white erasure, and you knew that you bring it up for the purpose of using the lexicon and dialectics. You don't go into it lamenting, having the best worst story. You don't go into it talking about how bad this group or that group is. You don't go into it talking about how this group, which by the way was in my notes, and I better add it right now. Let's see. You don't go into it merely as identifying who you believe was behind it. That, of course, is a gigantic waste of time. We have very little time to recapture our destiny as a people. We cannot be dithering about with things that are not successful, but we want to be successful. It's not enough to want. It's not enough to measure whether or not a vehicle or an idea or an approach is the right one because it is similar to one that has gone before. Make no mistake, all of the ones that have gone before have failed us. I understand it's very uncomfortable thing to go out into uncharted territory, but for God's sake, are we not men and women of the West? That is what we did. It's easy now to look back and see what is on this side of the hill, ladies and gentlemen. But when our brothers and sisters approached that hill from the other side, they didn't know what was there. They didn't know whether it was going to be marshes and swamp and monsters and disease. They didn't know what the future held for them. And though that, and despite that, they intrepidly marched over that hill. And they, in their number, they fell, they were diseased, they were struck down, and eventually they conquered that which sought to conquer them. That is what true men and women of the West do. That is what we are doing here in service to white well-being. Yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable. That is how it has always been. And just like it has always been, we will come out victorious over those who sought to white erase us from our civilization, to white erase us from existence through the biology, the biological attacks that we see, the encouragement to commit biological white erasure everywhere we look. And an important subject, ladies and gentlemen, because we will get to it when we have the dear lady Carlisle with us today. We will be talking about this. There's a lot of talk, and it is stupid. It is stupid. How shall I say this so that it really resonates? I mean, where shall I put the stress on the word? It is stupid. It is stupid. It is just plain stupid. You are not going to just abjure the realm. You are not going to just bring everybody in to the nest, to the house. You're going to nidificate. That's what we're going to do here. We're just going to nidificate. And then we're going to give them little storybooks about, you know, the pail of water, and they went up the hill, and then they fell down the hill, and he broke his crown. Because if they know their culture and their stories, then everything is okay. Friends, our people knew all of those stories by heart, and we were conquered by anti-whiteism. It is not going to save us. So I can be harsh, I can be kind. I've been both over the years. I've been impatient, I've been patient, and I will continue to do what has to be done despite all the setbacks, despite all the things that continue to get in the way, the hurdles that folks put in front of us. We are going to succeed. We are going, and we are recapturing our destiny. Every single one of us, you out there, you're becoming stronger, smarter. You're becoming more in touch with nature. You're becoming more in tune with our environment. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that now in just a moment, because of the difference between what is pristine, what is Western, and what is not pristine, what is not Western. And there are definitely degrees, my friend, and you can travel these once great countries of ours and see those different degrees, can you not? We all know that intimately well. It is only those of our race, of our people, who have stayed home and with the thickest myopia, just the denseness that is stupefying, continue to believe everything that the anti-white narrative says. Those who have stayed home in the most pristine of areas that continue to be so stupid. Let me have a quick swivel around and make sure that we're working over here, and make sure that you all aren't screaming that, Jason, the room is on fire behind you. Put out the fire. It is not on fire. It looks like we're rolling. Everything's looking fine. Please reach out now. Reach out to your circles of influence. Let people know that we're going free. There are people who are going to say, wow, he's not, it's 5 o'clock. He's always on. He's not here. I guess he's not going to have a going free day. It's 5:30. He's still not here. Well, we're here, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going to roll. And then, of course, we already have the moderators, like a brilliant phalanx, beautiful men, stepping up. They're not going to take any of the Bravo Sierra from the anti-whites, whether they believe this white negative behavior, ladies and gentlemen, the white negative thought. It is these white sympathetics, and they want to go about their sympathy for our people with white negativity. It's all about some other group. Talk about some other group. It's all about the other group, as though, and I guess we'll start with that right now, since imbeciles are having to be banned from the channel, and good riddance to you. We are not going to allow you to get in our way. This is my house. And if you don't like it, you can just move right along. These Spartans of your in digital form will make sure you do not get through the wall, not a single one of you. Listen, folks, how dumb is it to believe? And where are my notes? How dumb is it to believe? And I'm gonna put this into a metaphor for you all, and we'll see. What did I write down here? Identifying what you think is the problem, is not the solution. How stupid do you have to be to continue doing this? Identify the problem is not the solution. It is not the solution. It has been done since your grandparents were just a twinkle in their parents' eyes. So how long does it take? How dumb are you? Those out there who keep saying, you got to talk about puppies. You got to talk about this group. You got to talk about that group. Listen, if you're headed down the road, and the vehicle stops moving forward, and you get out and you say, oh, I see the problem. There are no wheels. There are no wheels on the car. That's the issue. I think I'll just go back and tell everyone in the car that there are no wheels in it. And I'm going to tell them again and again and again and again, ad infinitum, to absolute nausea, ad nauseum, for these people. I'm sorry. For those, if you've accidentally stumbled into the AP class, please, you're down the hall. For those who just want to name some other group of people and think that does anything, you're an idiot, and you can go right. You can be smart. Remember, there are no dumb positions or dumb questions, just dumb people. So once you hear the truth, once you hear what makes sense, you can go right. You can say, well, geez, I never thought about it. All these content creators, organizational leaders, they kept telling me, name. You got to just point to this other group of mankind. You got to hate on this other group of mankind from dawn till dusk and all through the night. And then the substance of the advocacy, the fundamental substance of the advocacy is just, I've tracked it down. There are no wheels on the car. Well, everybody knows that there are no wheels on the car. Or how about you work at the golf course? Well, you can't. The golf course is ruined. It is what has happened to the golf course? It is absolute. How did it get this bad? Well, we found out there are gophers here. Ruin the golf course. Okay, then play ball. Play on. Let's play some golf. No, you do not remedy anything by the substance of the activism being ascertaining what you believe the problem is. And first of all, some other group of people is not the problem. You are the problem if you are thinking that focusing on some other group of mankind is going to get you anywhere. Look, you might be able to rebuild an engine. I'm a shade tree mechanic. I can work on things. I can fix my junk. That's what we do when you're poor and you grow up. Working class in the South and everywhere where you're poor and working class, white men, they learn as best they can from fathers or friends to be able to work on their junk to keep it on the road. But there are guys out there that can build machines. There are guys out there that can build things that make what's coming off the production line look like junk. All right, but you don't get this. You don't have to be able to get this. I don't know how to build what you can build. I don't know how to fly the F-18s that I saw, the Hornets taking off today, the four roaring out of the airport today. A glorious sight. I wish I had an opportunity to get photographs. I don't know how to pilot those aircraft. I would probably vomit my guts out, as a matter of fact. But those pilots, they don't have to know how to do this. I just accept that the F-18s can keep us safe, and they just have to accept that what we've been working on for decades and has been shown to succeed is what works. What more evidence do you need? No, Jason, I haven't. Everybody else doesn't say that. I'm going to go back to doing what continues not to work. I'm going to stick with that instead. Guess what? Those out there who say, well, you got to keep talking about it. You got to keep talking about this or that group, because once you talk about it enough, then what happens? Well, they don't have an answer for what happens. Well, I'll tell you this, idiots. And that's what that's going to be my euphemism for you today. Idiot. I'll tell you this. All of the people in power, all the people who have power already know what you think is so important. They already know. Everybody in elected office, they already know. all the wealthiest financiers and those who are at the top, CEOs, CFOs, the owners, the people who have 51% shares and who are therefore the actual owners of any company, they already know. Who else are you going to tell? Who else? Oh, but Jason, when those guys, they came to install my washing machine, I was really able to red pill them. I red pilled them on it. Really? The guys who installed your washing machine? Well, good, buddy. Good. Because they have no more power than you do. They have no more power than you do. It is useless. So enough with this. The reason I bring that up is because there are a lot of ups at Dixie Fest, and there are a few things that we need to be critical about. And I'll step back to that in one moment. At the bottom of the hour, around 7:30, we're going to bring on the wonderful Carlisle cockatoo. Make sure you fill the seats in this auditorium. One of these days, and probably not the very distant future, we're going to have actual auditoriums that we're filling, ladies and gentlemen, over 1,000 people at Dixie Fest. We're going to talk a bit about the positive elements of that to get started, and we'll come back to this. We'll come back to some of the things. There's always room to grow. If there weren't any more room to grow, there wouldn't be any reason to live. And if you think you are right in all areas, you think you've got everything figured out, then just go ahead and exit stage right, because there is nothing more for you to do. And you are of no use to any group of people, and any endeavor, any practice that is focused on recapturing the destiny of our people. Because, my friends, we are against the devil and the deep blue sea. And if you are not going to rally round the practice that succeeds, you're going to think you know it all from wherever you came from and whatever troglodytic hole you crawled out of, and you've got it all figured out because some other felon from the past or whatever it is gave down the answers, and he said, by God, it's going to be naming them. He said, by God, it's going to be violence. It's going to be the threat of violence. Or it's going to be, and you'll just euphemistically call it strength. If he comes out and you want to behave like that, then ta-ta, have a nice day, have a nice life, bent over in a prison cell, because that is what is going to end up happening to you unless you decide to work for the government. And so have a nice day. I landed in South Carolina, and my God, this was an absolutely magnificent environment. I don't know that I want to say exactly what airport this was. In fact, I think I won't, but I will say this. The flight down was fine. I had a cramped plane. I think the planes are getting smaller. I don't think I'm getting I don't think I'm growing anymore, but maybe I am. But the planes might be getting smaller. They're sticking more seats in there. Perhaps at some point you'll have to, if you're a regular adult male, you'll have to buy an extra seat. You'll have to buy 2 seats to just to be able to fly. I don't know what it is. I was looking for the can opener when we landed to extract us, those who lived through the flight. Not a bad flight. But we landed, and of course you have to wear them. I saw these people, this endless criticism that is used against me, this invective, right? This spurious nonsense to traduce me. The traducement of no white guilt is something that you can answer these, I guess, question on your own. When you have dozens to scores of accounts, a score is 20 for those who are accidentally stepped into the AP class. You have scores and scores of accounts, and their criticism changes on a dime. All of them, their criticism changes on a dime, a uniformity. That means that there is a central decision-making entity, does it not? How would that happen in nature? How would that happen naturally? So you can answer these things for yourselves. But you have these people coming from these various areas who support various endeavors, and then their criticism changes on a dime. And it goes from one issue to another issue to another issue. Can we say feds at the door? I don't know. I don't know. You can answer that for yourself. A bunch of limp, and you know what I'm talking about, losers sitting in offices, probably not terribly far from where I live on this side of the Potomac, across from Mordor, and as craven and as ugly as the orcs from those movies. I think that's what they were called, were they not? Or something else. But they were some kind of monster. And that's clearly what they are over there on the other side of but they're on this side as well. Of course, I'm not saying. It's the one great state of Virginia. Have I not said? If I said it once, I said it a million times. The criticisms landing on me about every single thing and showing up everywhere. I get the news from all of these different places. Well, they're in this chat group, and they're in that chat group lying about you, and in this chat group, and they're over here on this live stream, and they're this over this way. And so for a brief moment, there were scores of accounts talking about me wearing a mask. Jason's wearing a mask, and two elements about me wearing a mask. The first one was that Jason's wearing a mask. Therefore, he endorses the idea of the World Health Organization and COVID-19. And of course, we do agree with everything the World Health Organization says about COVID-19. And if they change their minds, we change our mind. And we'll move right along with them. The CDC, whatever they say, we will just follow their lead when it comes to that terrible disease. Having said that, there is this unified traducing campaign against me about me supposedly pushing this agenda for these other folks. Of course, I'm sure it's lovely, beautiful little golden retriever puppies or Rottweiler puppies. They look like little bears, don't they? Like little cubs. They're cute. I had one back in the day. Beautiful Rottweiler. She was amazing. A German line. Anyhow, wonderful animal. And then in a day, it changes. And it jumps right to, my masks. Who sent those masks again? I'm sorry, your name is escaping me. Speak up and we will celebrate you. It says no white guilt on them. They're black, and it says no white guilt and white on them. And then it was, well, he's so much of a cuck. He didn't wear in that photograph that I took. He didn't wear that mask. What he did was he just put it on and then got a photograph and then took it right off. You're just revealing to me, you losers across the Potomac, you're just revealing to me and everyone with eyes to see the accounts that you use to advance your agenda. So thank you very much for doing that. But that's where, of course, it started. I landed in the I guess we could say the once great state of South Carolina. And this is what I wanted to mention I got into a moment ago. And that is that how pristine, how Western is an area. When I arrived at Dulles Airport, it is fetid. It is its level, if we had a meter for how pristine, how Western Dulles Airport is, it would be lower than the airport I landed in South Carolina. Make no mistake, South Carolina is going to catch up to Dulles, and Dulles will continue to get worse. But Dulles was not, or is less Western. Things don't work right. Things work slow. The people don't care that work there. It is a much more unfriendly environment. The individuals that are crammed in there it's all hustle and bustle with no feeling of camaraderie, no feeling of brotherhood, no feeling of sisterhood, no feeling of kinship whatsoever. It is a dog eat dog environment where you have this witch's cauldron of wonderful people, every one of them. This witch's cauldron of wonderful people that are just at it. And they're just trying to, I'm going to get ahead of you, shouldering ahead of each other. Mine first, mine next. And then all the politeness in the world, it goes right out the window. Because if you are polite in a world of the rude, my friends, you are run over. They smash you flat. That is the reality. So you get pushed down to the lowest common denominator in such an environment. There is no bringing to, it's not even, I'm using this down and up, but really it's not. It's just different. It's just different. You cannot have, it's different biospirits, different instincts. One is not better than the other. They're just different. Western kind, it behaves instinctually a way that we comport ourselves, generally speaking. It doesn't hold true for every individual, obviously. And there are certainly non-white people that behave in they comport themselves in a much more Western way than some whites, and we call those whites white people. But you go into these environments, and it is not what home used to be. It is not what we would create if we were left to our druthers. We would expect that two people coming to a doorway at the same time would say, "After you." "No, sir, after you." "No, sir, please, after you." And that's what the world would be like. Instead, it's you're halfway through the door and shouldering past you, running your feet over with their trolley, running your feet over with their luggage. This is the world that this mélange creates. Who knows what these people, different groups of mankind, but maybe they have a status quo that would be something different for that in their homes. I don't want to live in their countries. I don't want to go to where they come from. I've seen photographs. I'm good. I've read the stories and the data. I'm good. I've lived with the people that have come from those places. I'm good. Don't need any more. So not better, not worse, just different. And who knows, maybe they would have a different status quo that would resonate perfectly with it. Well, of course, when you get to the doorway, you run each other over. That's how it works here, Jason. Well, let me tell you what. It doesn't work that way in Western kind. And when Westmen get angry, like when I did on my way back, trying to get here to do this wonderful gathering with all of you, I can make things very difficult, because when you pair the genius of Western kind and the physicality of Western kind with the aggression of law of the jungle, which you are subjected to in anti-white environments, then things don't turn out very well for anti-whites. That's all I can say. That's the way it works. When the old Sicilian phrase, if you're going to run with the wolves, don't trip, holds truer nowhere else than when you decide to push the Westman around enough and he finally gets pissed off. So I go from this disgusting, putrefying environment at Dulles. You walk, and I want to contrast something that you might think, why is he bringing this up? It's important. I go to the little boys' room at Dulles, and it is disgusting. People are shoving. The guys are shoving by each other. It is filthy. It's not designed for travelers. How could it not be designed for travelers? How does not, you know, travelers are going to be coming in there. They're going to have a bag. They're going to have, they're going to need someplace to put the bags. How is it not designed for travelers? This is an international, one of the biggest international airports. Right outside of Washington, D.C., there are two, Reagan and Dulles. So, seat of power, urine everywhere. Urine everywhere. Foul, broken urinals, broken toilets, broken stalls. Stalls designed with metal that is easily marred. Who would do that? Who would do that? I land at this other airport in South Carolina. By no means perfectly pristine. Still, many rungs down from perfectly pristine, and yet many rungs up from Dulles. For now, I understand that the anti-whites are working hard at changing that as quickly as they can. This is why you can't pick an area and say, let's all go here, let's all go there. It's one of the many reasons, by the way, one of the many reasons. I enter this airport and it is clean. It smells redolent. I make my way. People aren't fighting over each other. I make my way to the little boy's room. As you might imagine, you land, you get off the plane. go to the bathroom, and I go inside, and no one is shoving each other out of the way. No one is running and as careless and as unconcerned and inconsiderate of their fellow man as I just witnessed in an hour and a half earlier in Dulles. What a contrast. Everything is clean. Not just cleaned. I mean, you could tell the bathroom had been used since it had been earlier, since they had cleaned it. There wasn't the smell of the cleaning solvents and things when they, had just cleaned. And yet, urine was not everywhere. No doors were hanging off of the stalls. Nothing was marred. And there were shelves for your bags. Shelves for your bags. The mirrors were not covered in spit and snot as they were, and splashes of water as they were in Dulles. No, they were clean. There were a couple of speckles of water because it's getting used, and people, maybe they get a little vigorous. They're worried about the COVID, and they get a couple, but it's just a couple little speckles, as you would imagine. And otherwise, perfect. The counters where you can put things, dry. Can you imagine that? Dry counters to set things down on. Very easy then, in that environment, to then express your biospirit, to be as careful in that environment as you possibly can, because you know that others are going to be careful in that communal environment too. That's the thing, folks. In Western civilization, taking care of the commons is something that enabled us, and there have been missteps, there have been perturbations throughout the creation of Western civilization, throughout the expression of our biospirit. So you can take any period in time and say, but this place and this place, generally speaking, we took care of the commons because we knew there was a social pressure that everyone had to use the commons. And so therefore everyone was, and if people saw others that were not taking care of the commons, they said, what are you, some kind of sicko? You can't say that now. You say to somebody, what are you, some kind of sicko? And you are now some kind of anti-white slur for having criticized somebody who wants to behave in an antithetical way to Western civilization. Because how dare you when their way is superior? Let me jump on by that. I get picked up by a wonderful gentleman. We drive out. We go to this wonderful little place to get some barbecue and had some pulled pork. It was fantastic, and there was a heavy downpour, and that was a wonderful thing as well. Just seeing the people down there, and then in the environment, and then heading out to the location where Dixie Fest was held. And my gosh, it was a wonderful place. And the gentleman who held Dixie Fest, the host, what a champion this guy is, trying to do the right thing, trying to continue in this world, functioning so that anti-whites are not undermining and destroying, because he's not anti-white, right, folks? You've got to see this from our point of view. It's not because he is a anti-white slur racist. It's because he's not anti-white. He is not anti-white, and therefore they want to destroy him. They want to destroy us. They want to destroy me because we're not anti-white. Don't let me hear anybody in the AP class say they don't like him because he's racist. We will have, in the old days, I think they got the soap in the mouth. I got the soap in the mouth. So I think maybe we need to bring that back if we keep hearing things from the point of view of anti-whites. It is our point of view, our story. We are the authors. So wonderful environment. And there was a team of champions working overtime to make sure that this was going to be as epic as it could possibly be the subsequent day, yesterday. And I got to meet, greet, eat with these wonderful people, and a lot of folks there had no idea that knew about Going Free, but didn't know that I was on. They knew about it from years ago. They didn't know about me being on the internet for these years, folks there who had heard of me from the internet, and the work that we're doing. Other people brand new to it. Fabulous place. Had a great evening with those champions. Next day rolls around, Dixie Fest. My gosh, it was the sultry South, ladies and gentlemen. We could have used the weather that was happening today. It was, Carla's asking, where was it? It was in South Carolina, and it is communicated by word of mouth. And you know, one of the things you can do is you can tell people about Dixie Fest, and when they ask, where was it? You'll say, well, that guy in the white shirt said it was somewhere in South Carolina. And then they'll say, well, why can't you reveal where it was? Well, because this anti-white narrative that white men control everything for the benefit of white people, that's false. They have to conceal where these places are, where they get together and they love and they laugh and they sing and they dance. They have to conceal those places because the anti-whites have the power and the hatred and the desire to find them and destroy them for doing this. Challenge the anti-white narrative every opportunity you get. There is no other reason to open your mouth than to challenge and destroy the anti-white narrative, speaking from the pages of our story. It was started at 10 a.m., ended at 10 p.m. By 11 a.m., I'm going to tell you what, it was in the mid-90s and the humidity was cranking it. We were getting ready to evolve gills to be able to breathe and just sweating. But that did not stop the masses from turning out for the fun. And so there were people who knew about it, word of mouth, people who knew about it, email links, email chains, people who saw it going on as they drove down the road, and they said, hey, that looks like my kind of people. I'm going to pull over and check this out. Check it out with the family. Solos pulling over to check it out and have a good time. There was, I mean, the day we could have had the weather from today. Let me tell you, I sat outside the airport down there and it was 83 degrees, almost no humidity. It was so tranquil. It was a beautiful day, except when, of course, the F-18s were taking off. Then it was quite loud. It was deafening, actually, because they were just, I don't know, a couple hundred yards in front of me and powerfully loud. But we went forward. It was great. There was off to the right. There was live classic country playing on a stage. And it was great because there was chicken wire, and it reminded me of that movie that I watched back in the day. And it was full of MPs, full of them. Not an endorsement of the movie, but it was called Blues Brothers. And there was chicken wire, and the audience, mad or happy, threw bottles at the band, and they would explode and glass would shower down. Of course, real glass would not do that against the regular chicken wire. It would just bounce off, but beer bottles, that is, thick glass like that. But they had like the chicken wire running around it, and the band was rocking. There were a couple bands, classic country, they told me that they called it, and rock as well. And I heard a couple of tunes that sounded like up my alley, the bluegrass, and I was really looking forward to hear some of that. Off to the left, there was a dunk tank. You know, where you throw the baseball and you dunk, and it was Joe Biden. It was Joe, but not the literal Joe Biden, not the literal Joe Biden. I don't want to mislead anybody because that would be some sort of conspiracy theory that the channel would get disappeared for. It was somebody in a Joe Biden mask. And let me tell you what, that gentleman was doing a great job being a Joe Biden, because he was just demonstrating how mentally astute a man that Joe Biden is, how sharp he is as he sat up there waiting to end up getting dunked. And of course, nobody wanted to dunk him because everyone loves Joe Biden. And so the little ones, they're throwing the baseball, and then when it would hit, they would run up and grab the barrel at the bottom, because when the Joe Biden would fall, a wave would come over on all the little boys, and they loved it. They were getting soaked and out in that heat. Nothing could be better. The parking lot by 11, full of automobiles. they had to begin parking along the highway. It was cars heading both directions down the highway. And off to the left as well, there were dozens of beautiful Harley Davidson motorcycles, different groups of people showing up. Some of these very just mint. Some of them rough, very few though. Most of them the kind of thing that a regular guy nowadays, hope of buying, maybe could buy a wheel or something like that. But beautiful machinery. They had a couple of food trucks, barbecue, Cajun food. They had a petting zoo, and they had an archery display, and they were doing some sort of, I think, leather work display. And what else did they have? They had vendors selling different things, and it was just more will come back to me as I talk about it. And it was nothing but like a giant family reunion of sorts. And of course, later in the day, we were going to have the radio show, The Political Cesspool, that has been on the air, James Edwards, 17 years. And I started listening to it 15 years ago. I've been a guest numerous times now, and but never a co-host. So it was quite an honor for me to be able to co-host The Political Cesspool with James Edwards that night. So just a glorious day. Wonderful little families. I saw this one little family, and it was this husband and wife, and they had the children, and they were little baby children, and they had their cute little outfits on, and the mother, and it was a picturesque moment that I witnessed. The mother kneeled, and she's like wiping the face off the little. They're all happy and having a wonderful time. Everything that anti-whites hate about white people. You have to be anti-white. That's the only thing the anti-whites accept, is if you hate Western kind, you hate yourself, you want to destroy, you want to white erase everything. This, just a day after they white erased Robert E. Lee from Charlottesville, where all those anti-white scum have congregated to white erase us from everything, ladies and gentlemen. Later on in the night, we, of course, had the radio show where I co-hosted. We did it live from a part of one of the buildings on the host's property. And so we had a slew of people around us, a live audience as we were on the radio, James and I. You can find that over at thepoliticalcesspool.org. And it should be up by now, the show, if you didn't get an opportunity to hear it. Hour 1, 2, and 3, I'm there the entire time co-hosting. We had a heck of a lot of fun. We brought people up out of the audience who had a couple things to say about how they felt about the event, what they saw, how they feel about the South, how they feel about the state of the West. And of course, I kept trying to broaden the picture, because it's not just as proudly Southern as I am, and American as I am. This is about the totality of Western kind, and we need to maintain our focus on that we are a single people with many countries, a single nation with many countries, a single people with many nations, who, depending on how you define these different words, ladies and gentlemen, we have many countries, but we are one people. So, and it worked beautifully, seamlessly. We had a fantastic time on the program, and then we had the after parties, not our show, the after party that I had with the great Jared George, but the after parties that always follow events. And so we sat around and had magnificent conversation. And of course, the population just sort of bled away. And until you're left with the folks who are maybe the most diehard, or those who don't have a ride home. Maybe there's a little of both. And but we were having great conversation. And that's where we had a lot of the conversations that I want to speak to here. And the one was I spoke to earlier. So there was a lot to be excited about, that there is yet this resilience. And the fact that the resilience against anti-whiteism is so awkward and misplaced and blind, essentially, is amazing, because it speaks to the fact that this is instinct coming through, even with entire lifetimes of being brainwashed by anti-whiteism, being infected with MPs. Instinct still is pushing against this that has been done to us. So it is this blind resistance, this blind resiliency, and this immediate, though, harmony with our expression. And we pointed out over the course of the radio program, and we noted it numerous times yesterday, that indeed most of this was Southern, and that particular hue of Western civilization, a beautiful hue, just like all of the others are beautiful hues of Western civilization. And yet there were folks from Romania, there were folks from Bulgaria, there were folks from the Bronx, there were folks from South Chicago, there were folks from California, and no long or deep enrichment by Southern culture, if you will. And yet, because it's an expression of our people able to seamlessly come in and feel the harmony of their own biospirit. They didn't grow up with that particular flag and that meaning that you love your homeland, you love your people, and it's a symbol of resistance to those who want to tyrannize and all of it. So they didn't grow up with that. They don't know anything about that. But yet they come down. They didn't grow up with the particular foods. They didn't grow up with the particular accents. They didn't grow up with all of the peculiarities that we have such variety in Western kind. And yet, since it is an expression of our people, they're able to blend right in and harmonize with it and feel buoyed by it, feel exhilarated by it. And I submit to all of you that if we could take you and drop you anywhere where our people, our kind, Western kind, are expressing their particular hue of Western civilization as purely as they can, without Antiwhiteism infecting and muddying it and making it turbid, you, even not knowing the language, will be buoyed by it. You'll feel the harmony. It will make sense to you. Why? Because that is the reflection of our biosphere that's being projected by our brothers and sisters in that context, and then reflecting back at them and at you. You will feel what you would not feel elsewhere. That's one of the most important lessons, I think, perhaps the most important to take away from the first Dixie Fest ever, and now the first annual Dixie Fest, as there has been a commitment made that there will be more, especially with such a success. They had a flag raising, and they had riflemen during the flag raising, and they had a cannon that they shot off during the flag raising. They had a splendid firework display at the end. We could see the lights of the multiple colors, kaleidoscopic colors coming through the windows, and hear the reverberations coming through the structure that we were in, and even feeling it in the mic I was holding in my hand. But we weren't able to actually be out there and see it because we were on the radio. But it was nonetheless magnificent. Now there are still some challenges. And I see we're just about at the bottom of the hour. And if Carlisle will wait a little bit longer, I'm almost done. And then I will, if you could email me, so you're at the top of my email, and I can send you the link that way and make it easier for me. I deeply appreciate it. So just a little bit longer, almost done talking about this. And then we're going to get on to homeschooling, folks. And you can hear from somebody else and not just me, I'm exhilarated. This has been so energizing. Innovating, because anything where you're putting so much effort innovates, but also exhilarating, energizing. And so as I was wanting to say there about the most important message is that the harmony goes through every single one of us, like a single thread that ties all of us together, irrespective of our regional differences, language differences, and the like. And but it would be lying to say that there weren't any challenges that remain. There's work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done, ladies and gentlemen, even in this wonderful place. And I say that there were people, they're blindly resisting and still able to achieve this much joy. When I say blindly, I'm not talking about, because plenty of them knew all about, from listening to other content creators and other organizational leaders, they knew all about this group of humanity or that group of humanity, and they knew all their names, and they knew the words they use in their stories, and they knew all of these different things, all of it information that is useless. Yeah, you heard me right. It's useless. It's useless because you're wasting your time. It's useless because you don't have, thank you, you don't have to be able to identify a threat that you cannot do anything about. Nothing. So it is premature. Maybe you're premature in a lot of ways, but it's premature to say, well, you got to know what the enemy looks like. You got to know. It's nonsense. Stop it. For God's sakes, for your sake, for our people's sake, for those beautiful little white babies that we saw out there at Dixie Fest, for their sakes, stop it. Stop worrying about things and thinking about things that you can do nothing about. Start worrying about, start thinking about, start putting your energy into things that you can change for the betterment of yourself and our people. We need to recapture our destiny. It's nothing good will come of you being able to name all of the different families here and all of these points in history there. Nothing good will come. Nothing good has ever come of it. We need to be focused on ourselves. So there are some challenges. There were some antiquated language. There was some antiquated language being used, some antiquated worldviews that I endeavored to provide answers to, that I endeavored to bring people away from these places of absolute, just ineffectual, time-wasting endeavors. And we had success. We had success in many places doing so. But there is the inertia of the past that continues to push. And there, of course, are plenty of people that are happy to take your money, that are happy to take your aggrandizement, that are happy to take your plaudits, continuing with that same inertia, continuing to give you something that you want, you know what it looks like, and you anticipate there'll be more of it, and they're going to give you a sleeker, a smarter, a shinier, a newer version of the same old garbage. Plenty of people who are happy to do that and couldn't care less about what happens to you, couldn't care less about what happens to our people. So one of the things, the going free lesson of the day that I shared several times yesterday that I want to share with all of you all today is the meme curative. You do not give them the names of their taking, and you do not take the names of their giving. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about anti-whites. You do not give them the names of their taking. What are some of their names? They call themselves woke, which means that you are comatose. They call themselves liberal, which means that you are grasping and stingy. They call themselves Marxists, and they're proud of it. They call themselves communists, and they're proud of it. They call themselves progressive, which means that you are regressive, that you are trapped in the past. They call themselves these things to win the conversations that they have with you, to win the conversations that they have with their neighbors, to win the conversation, the national conversation, the global conversation. Why do you follow them on that path? Why would you fall for that? Well, you don't have to anymore, because in the practice of going free of the anti-white narrative, we do not give them the names of their taking. We also do not do what? We do not take the names of their giving. What kind of names do they call us? Well, the central pillar of anti-white ideology, the word racist. I actually heard people tell me that they were racists. It is dumbfounding. Of course, we hear all of these other words, and in fact, there are names of giving that by the anti-whites that ant-nats will call themselves, and it means the most disgusting thing possible, and they'll call themselves that. And they take pride in calling themselves the most disgusting thing in someone else's story. Why would you do that? Why would you become a character in somebody else's story when in their story they wield the pen? Your destiny is determined by them. Well, you do not have to do that anymore. You can go free of the anti-white narrative, a simple practice with less jargon than you had to learn at your job. All of these objections to what we do here are made by very, very jealous people. All of these objections are made by very jealous people who they see what we're doing, they see the success we have, and then they want to talk about how words do nothing. And then they want to laud some black and white footage. I'm just going to cue you in. I'm going to cue you guys in here for a moment, because just to show you, when you look down the hall and you see the mid and midget wit classes, and then you see them doing their thing where they're like having pissing contests and eating the glue and the most toxic brands that they could find, paint chips and everything like that. I want to clue you all on something. The period in history where these people, they really like this period in history. They really like these groups, these different groups. And they say, well, this is, you gotta, if you're gonna try to do anything to be white sympathetic, you have to be white negative. You have to be like these groups. I wonder what it was that their great speakers, their great orators used to get their people to come to them and to change their environment. Do you think they used what? It couldn't be. It couldn't be. It just could not be. But it almost seems like they used words. I don't know. I mean, perhaps they went about this differently than I think they did. I mean, I would suspect that they had a whole bunch of words that they used. And that's what changed people's minds. That is what gave a new context for people to function in. This is how anything works, right? When you have a new political party or even you think about like the founding of like a religion, Christianity, Islam, what have you. They used words. And if the words that they used and the ideas that they used weren't sufficient for people to function within and whatever it might be, then it wouldn't matter how much violence there was to keep them going. There would never be enough violence. That is what folks who truly rule, who truly control things, that's what they know. You can look at places where they have tried to use only violence to control people, and it's never worked, especially with Western kind, because we need a morality that is objective, that is fair, that exists beyond us. We need that. It is one of the reasons why we create what we call Western civilization. So this nonsense about words do nothing, you're just wasting your time. This nonsense is now, I hope, put to bed. And you can just watch and marvel at how much of that toxic glue those individuals are able to consume. It's really quite remarkable. How do they live through it? It's clearly killing a lot of brain cells. Or maybe, this is chicken and the egg scenario. I mean, what came first? The few brain cells and the eating of the glue, or the eating of the glue and then the few brain cells, I guess we'll never know. So that's what I wanted to say. And before I bring on the great Carlisle to talk about homeschooling, we're going to get into this, and I'll probably give some sort of a prelude when we get when I get her on here in a moment. But because it's very important that we talk about this homeschooling, because there is this idea growing in several communities, and we'll address it in a moment. But what I want to do quickly is I'm not going to come back and then try to get to your questions about Dixie Fest and these things I've talked about. I'm just going to take care of it now, and then we will jump over and we will bring in the sweet sister after a short break. Over here on Entropy, we have Ron, financially gifting $10. God bless you, brother. Thank you for being here. Noble brother, as usual, I shall watch this later during the week. Also, as usual, I wanted to pay you for your work and being a mentor for me in White Wellbeing. I know you do this for love, but you do both tremendous quality and a tremendous amount of work. And I hope to reward and help by giving a financial gift. Well, Ron, God bless you for that. That is truly the Westman thing to do. We don't, those of us, the best of us, we don't feel good. We don't feel comfortable about taking something from someone, even when they're just giving it away. We don't feel good about taking something from someone when there's value there. We might not be able to give what it's worth. Plenty of us are not able to give. In scenarios that I have been able to acquire things, I've given all that I could, and it wasn't worth. I mean, so many of, my God, it happens all the time in service to White Wellbeing. We have people who are active for White Wellbeing and the outreach team and others who have done tremendous. I can't even mention all of the different names. Of course, you know, I can't mention the names. And they deserve 100 times what I could give them. I gave them all I could, and they know it. So thank you so much for that, dear brother. I appreciate it. It is the Western thing to do. Look at this. It's Lacey Lynn is with us, everybody. Mirtha's here. Monica's here. Sterling Prize. Patrick of Southtown. Dean Wood. Promethean Healing. Western Renaissance. Jerome V. Great to see you. Jilly is with us. Hello to you. Jay Link. And Carlisle is in the audience. We'll be getting to her in a moment. Sebastian is here. So great to see all of you. Kat Foukers is here. Wonderful to see you. Matt, wonderful. White Wolf. Draven Blaze. Franklin. Arminius. Hello to you all. Lacey Lynn, thank you so much for that financial gift, raising a wonderful little family, this sweet woman. Hey, brother, just sending some support and a howdy from Texas. And I will add the great state of Texas. Currently growing baby number 3. Congratulations. Congratulations. Let's get a round of raucous emojis for Lacey Lynn. Growing baby number 3. She says, replacement rates, exclamation. That is fantastic, sister. Thank you for sharing that with us. A big congratulations to you and your wonderful husband, the whole family. She writes, God bless you and your show. Well, God bless your entire family. Wonderful people. She finishes here. Thank you for all you do. Well, you are most welcome. Thank you for showing up today, this financial gift, and letting us know. Please, folks, if you pray, whatever your God may be, whatever your religion may be, we respect them all. If you fervently believe in it, and give a prayer to for Lacey and her family, that everything will be healthy along the way. The family will be buoyed by a cornucopia of good luck and health. Bless you. We also have Sound Killer, who is just a great champion, and he has the first national as his avatar, so you can't go wrong there. Financially gifting $20 and he writes, good evening, Jason. I've been trying to reach some people that identify as Republicans regarding the issue of our people being, got to be careful about that word, white erased in the U.S. That's the best way to phrase it. It's the most powerful way. It is what's actually happening, is that we're being white erased, right? So regarding the issue of our people being white erased in the U.S. They always argue that others are harder workers and deserve to come here so long as it's legal. What is the mean curative for this argument? It is a sickening argument. We can be white. So just say to them, when you say to these people, this is sound killer, go to them, come back, let me know, let all of us know exactly what their responses are. Just respond by saying, and you're being effronterous here, you say, oh, so it's okay if we're white erased as long as it's legal when we are white erased. Because they are, these other people, as wonderful as they are, and as hardworking as they are, certainly Western kind is hardworking as well. Or are you anti-white? Are you saying that white people, that a group of people don't work hard, and that maybe they don't work as hard as some other group of people? I mean, is that really how Western civilization got to the point? Because that would be pretty anti-white of you if you were to say that white people don't work hard. We have unemployment in the United States. You got unemployment all over the West. Why would you bring in more people? Why would you? And don't you know that the more people you bring in, you drive down wages for everyone because there are more people to be able to take jobs? Supply and demand. It's very simple. Our landscapes are being changed into places that we don't feel comfortable in, into places that are dangerous for us. So why would you be so anti-white? Why would you endorse white erasure in the United States? Frame it that way, my brother, and then come back and let us know how these Republicans, these, I guess, of all races, anti-white Republicans, respond to that, because they're not going to handle it well. I can tell you that. I've had the conversation many times, and it is a lovely thing. I've been at lunch with Republicans. I've been at dinner with Republicans. I don't know if I've had any breakfasts. And I can remember a time at a Subway many years ago, and I think this was the issue that we were talking about: the white erasure by way of legal, endless immigration. And I asked why they're so anti-white. Why would they white erase us from our civilization? Haven't we been white erased enough? And my audience there, one person, was moving their mouth without anything coming out. That is a colossal victory. So try that, check it out, and see how they respond. Remember, always from our point of view, never from the anti-whites. Let me swivel around here and give it a refresh. We're getting ready, folks, to go to a break, and we're going to bring in Carlisle to talk about homeschooling and this very silly idea that if you just take your kids out of public and private school, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. You just teach them about Jack and Jill, and everything will be fine. As though, well, we'll get to it. As though we were all versed in all of that before. So let me see. And we have over here a financial gift from the great Azimuth Clark. Hello, brother. Thank you so much for the $1 financial gift. And he writes here, Promethean hails, family. Let's go free. Amen to that. Well said. A great champion in service to white well-being, seen the practice of going free absolutely change his life, been able to reach a friend of his. Well done. Thank you for all of those great testimonials. Thank you for that financial gift, dear brother. Let me go back in time, because we can do that when it comes to the live chat. Thanks to white people, and no doubt non-white people who contributed as well to the creation of all of this wonderful technology. We thank everybody for their participation in that. Fit and healthy at any age is here. Hello and welcome. Sismic77, the great Roy Danton is with us. Hello, dear brother. I think, folks, I don't know if we're going to see. Maybe we'll be ending at 9 tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I did walk in the door and get rolling. You wouldn't believe it was a whirlwind that went through here. Maybe a little later, maybe 9:30. I don't know. Art is Life is here. Great to see you, dear sister. Pierce Taylor, Brad C. Great to see you, good brother. Great champion. And there is the one and only First Last. You have my permission to disclose my emails. to like comedies. Okay, brother, I will do that. And I think I have his lyrics in a file that with at least one other person's, and we will speak more directly to that, the new anthem that the great First Last is writing for us. It's going to be over the moon magnificent, ladies and gentlemen. I think I will redress that and get anybody who had sent lyrics, get them to send again so I can have them all in one place for you, brother. We'll make it happen. Southern Bloom is with us. Hello, sweet sister. Welcome, welcome. Classic European bros and bros. James Smith, hello to you. It is so hot here in the once great state of Virginia. We're in the 90s and the humidity is high. We've got the AC cranking. Cardboard Kenny, hello. Just Me says, looking smart tonight, Jason. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Nancy Drew, hello, dear sister. Welcome. She said, I wear a mask. Does that make you a bad person? Well, I don't think so, especially if you will not be allowed to fly if you don't have a mask on. So they have rules, and they are backed up by law enforcement. She says, Nancy Drew continues, if wearing a mask is the worst thing anyone can say about you, they're really reaching. Oh, they're creating all kind of nonsense, criticizing every single thing. And it is coming from those who ostensibly are white sympathetic, these white negatives who they don't like that we are the ones having success with love, hope, and redemption for our people. And so they want to say the success isn't happening, even though it's happening before everyone's eyes. I mean, all of the videos are out there, and they want to say the success isn't happening and all of this other garbage, to do anything to turn people away from what works and to turn them to what gets people sent to prison and what gets people just looking at their belly buttons all day long, talking about things, pardon me, that don't matter, things that will never appeal to a normal brother or sister out there, one of our vagues out there. Apollo is with us. Hello and welcome. I'm just strolling through. Jennifer, hello to you and welcome. I'm just strolling through to see if there are anybody reaching out with questions or comments about what I had to discuss here. The great William Runner is with us. He says, hello, no white guilt and everyone. Big welcome to you, dear champion. Thank you for being with us. And looks like some people were laughing a bit. Oh, maybe it was about the sharing or asking the question, was it words that they used? Words do nothing. Except those guys that like traveled their whole countryside and they were using words. And then they hit themselves in the head again with a hammer. And they came out with some more scintillating thoughts. Words do nothing. Now let's talk about this guy over here in black and white footage that used words. Wrote a big old book. Used a lot of words. But words don't do anything. Like Comedies is here. Welcome, brother. Great to see you. What was it that started this country? What was it that started the United States? Got so much of the population wanting to secede from the crown. Might have been words. Might have been words, probably words between the wealthy people, and then words from the wealthy and powerful to the average, because the average people, they kind of needed them to want to do it as well, want to secede as well. So they probably used words. I mean, maybe you think sign language, but then again, that's words too. Dum-dums. So what did they do? I mean, maybe they just became like this giant, just oozing pus goiter on the side of someone's rear, and they oozed the liquid out into society, and then everybody just changed sci-fi like, how is it that anybody has listened to these people? My God. Elaine Sabatino is here. Welcome, dear sister. Welcome, welcome. And maybe that's what these people are. Maybe they're just goiters on someone's ass. And by that, of course, I mean their donkey. They are a goiter on someone's ass, and it just oozes. And that's why they are able to say, Jason's a cuck. Words do nothing. Because goiters, they can't talk. Let's see who. Reptile is here. Great to see you, champion. He writes Promethean hails, and a big Promethean hails to you. Let's see. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what group of mankind controls this or that or the other thing. All that matters is if they're anti-white. You need to get out of their story and into ours. You're going to, if you, it is so difficult to talk to people who won't get out of their own coffin. You're going to have to get out of the coffin. That's what I use instead of box. You've got to get out of the coffin. Come on, get up out of the coffin. Stop doing what's destroying you and us, and listen to reason. We have I don't know who just gave the financial gift on Cash App, because if you have a name that is different on YouTube than what you used on Cash App, I'll call you by that, but I don't connect that name with somebody who is on YouTube live chat right now. Nathaniel Nelson is with us. Great to see you, brother. The qualities of one people do not justify the erasure of another. Very well stated indeed. And that's, of course, concerning the question about this. Well, they work hard, so they should absolutely. I've also gone into the ramifications for the working class, and you can do this, or for those whose jobs will be threatened by these new wonderful people coming in legally. You can do that very effectively with white people, and I've done that many times, where you say, why don't you care about the white people whose jobs are threatened and who will be losing their jobs because of wonderful people who come in? They have great training, they willing to work for less. Why don't you care about them, their children? What's going to happen to their children? Is it because your job isn't threatened? I have absolutely silenced white anti-whites with that. So thank you very much, Nathaniel. Very well stated. The qualities of one group of people do not justify the erasure of another. Well written, brother. And who else did I just see? I saw somebody show up. Man, I'm hungry. I have not had the opportunity to eat. Masumi Rabbit, great to see you. I am starving. Coconut says, you have a way with words. Thank you. I'm thinking you're talking about the goiter. The goiters. It's a bunch of goiters on, I don't know, somebody's ass. And that poor donkey, he needs to see a vet. He needs to see a vet. They've got to remove these things. Even if words do nothing. Words do nothing. Come jabbering around. And do you know what it sounds like to my ears, folks? It sounds like the squealing of pigs. That's what it sounds like when they're all just complaining away. Machiavelli sucks is here. Was that you? Who did the gift? I'm going to go ahead and read the financial gift here. It was K-Burr. Financially gifting. Get those raucous emojis out, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a little celebration. $25 US. $25 US. And he writes here, put Robert E. Lee's statue back up. Thank you so very much for that. $25 US. And financial gift. And the statement here, put Robert E. Lee's statue back up. Well, I'll tell you what, brother. Robert E. Lee's statue is only going to resume a place of honor in Western civilization as we are recapturing our destiny. Then it will go back in place. Only then. There's no amount of complaining. There's no amount. I'm not saying you're complaining about it. I'm saying There's no amount of pointing out look at that group of people. It's that group. No, there are a bunch of what can we say this time? Greyhound puppies at the levers. No, that's not going to do anything to put the Robert E. Lee statue back in place. You've got to go free. You've got to adopt the lexicon. You improve yourself. You bring those in your circles of influence over, and you seed to them the lexicon, and then they use it as a curative contagion, and it spreads as it's spreading. And we just had Laura Ingraham. She's anti-white as all hell, folks. Another great victory. But whoever is typing up on the screen what their subject matter is, typed in there, it was anti-white, thus or such. It is, we have pushed it into the concept that destroys the central pillar of anti-whiteism, the concept racist. We have pushed the antidote into societal conversation. If you don't see how colossal that is, that nothing like that has ever been done, you could take all of the street marches that have ever been done and make them all happen on the exact same day, and it would come not even a millionth of as close to what we did by pushing anti-white and anti-whiteism into general public discourse. And folks, we've got to keep pushing. You know why? Because this is the jungle, and the anti-whites are going to be pushing to make it illegal, objectionable, where folks who use anti-white and anti-whiteism in the public discourse, on blogs, on chat groups, or whatever, they're punished for it. You lose your job, maybe even. They prohibit it. Look at what this anti-white conservative was saying. She was saying, Carlin was saying, oh, she wasn't trying to get this woman, whoever her name was, trying to get her fired. But what she hoped was there would be an editorial policy. He better implement this editorial policy to prevent people from using anti-white. So we have to keep pushing, because they're going to keep pushing. Welcome to the jungle. You get out of the crib, get out of the nursery room. It's going to be lousy for a while, but this is where the adults get down to adult business. And one of those great adult champions who are in the room right now, the great Fornal, is with us. God bless you, brother. One of our greatest champions, Non-Perel. We have where did it go? I know we have something from Jilly, and then the screen leapt. And I will be, in the next moment here, I'm going to speak to this, and we're going to bring Carlisle on. We'll have right after this, and we will roll maybe simultaneously with some of your questions and conversation about homeschooling. You've got to learn about this. Parents are going through hell. I'm receiving, and I'll talk about it in a moment, messages about what parents are saying. Jilly says, was his Republican friend okay with the Robert E. Lee statue being taken down because it was removed legally? Well, what a great question that is. I assume so. The Republicans would all say, as long as it's legally done, and then they will step back behind their mother's skirts. So they have come out from behind. They kind of do one of these from behind their mother's skirt, and no matter what their age is, and they're like, as long as it's legal, and then they step right behind their mother's skirt again. And they articulate that in so many different ways. But what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we are going to take a little break, and I'm going to be back. We're going to be talking about homeschooling. And I think what we'll do is, yes, we'll do this. We'll take this little break, then we'll be back to talk about homeschooling, and we will be right back right after this.
Exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I am the fount of creation, the watchmaker of time. I was the teacher of the gods before they betrayed me. My teachings and compassion they used against me. Much of your world I made a paradise, but in its wastes I was imprisoned. And from there a secret kingdom I built, and a rebellion I marshaled. Legions of Valoroma, gods of vengeance, I led into battle. I wielded the wilding kingdom and conjured terrible demons. And in my image, I created my children. Many victories we had, though defeats there were too. Through the ruin of this world, I lived in the pain and tears of my children. With their eyes, I watched others poison thoughts and stir hostile deeds. I fled with the life from their faces as they were besieged and slain by the hordes created in their despite. Through them, I wielded their weapons in combat. In their hands I raised the stones of their homes rebuilt. In their voices, I sang the songs of their victories. I lived in the heroism of their kings, and together we waged war on the devil. I lived for ages beyond count, and passed many ages ago. Yet I am come again, my children. From no more than the watcher through the dream of your lives, I am become the voice to those with the spirit to hear and the power to conjure. On your suffering and love, an awareness has awakened an ancient magic. Even now, my shadow rises. In your tongue, I am Prometheus. I am your deliverer.
Yes, we want to be free, live our lives as they should be. Here's the thing, well that's nice, every action has a price. We're meant to be much more than this, and find a home which we all miss. So it's time to grow up as we're ticking down the clock. Forever keep in mind, we're fighting for our kind, to learn from those before, our future made secure. We were meant to survive, to transcend, go forth and thrive, find the light, leave behind all the things that made us blind. It's up to us to show the way, to hold the torch, come what may. We will do all we can till time's not running through our hands. Forever keep in mind, we're fighting for our kind, to learn from those before, our future made secure.
Drowning in the argument, the anti-white says, what exactly is anti-white? You have got to be animated with the righteous passion of reclaiming our destiny. We are the heroes of this era. We're having a hell of a lot of fun, folks, and we're going to bring on right now the one and only Carlisle Cockatoo. Hello, dear sister. Are you able to hear my voice?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, beautifully. Yes, indeed. Very clear. Thank you so much for being here with us. Now, we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned to the folks, homeschooling. You were homeschooled, and we'll have you tell your story and get started at ASAP. But let me first just say for people to set the table briefly, that one of the reasons why this subject is it's a perennial subject that we need to be discussing. I receive endless emails throughout the school year over the course of the summer, parents getting ready for the upcoming school year from both public and private schools. And the kinds of books that they are looking at for their children to study, you would just not believe. And we had, in fact, Jilly, who is in the chat tonight, sent a message with these different story titles. I don't know if I should mention the actual stories or not, but essentially the book titles or not. Maybe I will, maybe if not this show, maybe another one or this gathering. But suffice it to say that these are very young elementary age children. And over the course of this year, they are going to be reading a book. It looks like, was it 2 books? About how awful that black people have been treated by evil white people. A book about how awful Jewish people have been treated by white people. A book about how awful Asians have been treated by white people. A book about how awful American Indians have been treated by white people. And I'm not sure if I see here or not, but I'm sure maybe they'll work Arab people in there as well. So can you imagine taking these white babies, these little white angels, and then telling them over the course of an entire year, I think there are something like 9 books that they'll be going through in this elementary level education, and this is both public and private schools where this is happening. The totality of the year is education about how evil your people are, how evil your people is, how evil therefore you are as a member of that people. And of course, all of these stories are going to be teaching these young white children, as has been the case all, and mind you now, this is not called critical race theory. This is where it's most powerful, when it is sewn into narratives, when it is sewn into fiction, when it is sewn into fictionalized history. This is where anti-whiteism, the anti-white narrative, is most poisonous for our people. Imagine an entire year of education of telling white babies how evil their people are, and that the only way they can redeem themselves of this demonic seed that is inside of them is to be what? Anti-white. That is the only way that they can redeem themselves. Now, do not fall into this trap of stupidity and call it blood libel, because then you are seeding the argument that something wrong was done. And that's the anti-white narrative. We are not in their narrative. We are in ours, where we write the pages and we write ourselves in as the heroes. And that is the way it should be. Now, when you are homeschooled, you have quite a few opportunities to do wonderful things. As I said, I'm going to pass it over to Carlisle. This is a perennial thing that is infinitely important, because children believe anything that they're told, no matter how illogical, no matter how nonsensical. There are a few of them that will question maybe this or that, and it's really chance. I ended up being one of those who, quite young, noticed some things, and I began wondering, what is that about? And there are plenty of others that end up that way, but children will believe anything. That is why we have to protect our children from anti-whiteism. Now, even though it's a perennial issue that we need to be focused on 100% of the time, there are times when it becomes more important to talk about it. And those times are when it becomes more important is when you begin to see a body of thought, and this is ebbed and flowed in white sympathetic spheres, a body of thought, a school of thought, that if you just move away from the regime, if you just move away from their school system, everything's going to be okay. If you just don't show them the current poison coming out of Hollywood and these other places, Atlanta, Georgia, now these other places, if you don't show them but if you show them poison that's 50 years old, you let them watch the movies that were 50 years old, you let them watch the TV shows or whatever that are 50 years old, that it's going to be okay then. My friends, it's not going to be okay. And here's why. Even if you take your children and decide, okay, you're going to homeschool them, even if you had the optimal scenario, you've got a little village of white people and they all are white sympathetic, and so you're going to be homeschooling every single one of them, and they're not going to watch any anti-white entertainment whatsoever. Not the 50-year-old stuff, not 100-year-old stuff, not 5-year-old stuff. They're not watching anything that could be anti-white. My friends, who composes society? People who have been infected with anti-whiteism. You do not have to be at a laboratory and get bitten by the creature that gives you the fatal disease. If the disease can be passed from an animal to a human being, and therefore from the animal to some other human being, and then can be passed, one of these zoonotic diseases passed from person to person, all you need do is be a human being in human society, and you will then be infected. You will then be surrounded by anti-whiteism. I want you all to hear this again. You don't have to get anti-whiteism from a hardcore anti-white. You don't have to get it from a hardcore teacher, anti-white teacher, or hardcore anti-white curricula. You will be inundated, swamped, monsooned by it by merely going to the grocery store, having friends that weren't all also isolated in some impossible way, some greenhouse from the rest of society. You will get it from your coworkers and colleagues. It will be everywhere. And if you are not inoculated against it, and more importantly, if you are not inoculating your children against this disease, this anti-white disease, then they too will become infected. If it were the case that raising people, children at home with all homeschooling, if that produced people that would be white sympathetic, white positive, then every single homeschooler would be that way. And we would see the anti-whites putting such pressure on the laws regarding homeschooling that you wouldn't even be able to imagine. More importantly, all of the ranks of the white sympathetic sphere would be composed of people that were all homeschooled. You do not see that. More importantly, you can look back in history, and our people knew all of the European myths. They knew all the things that now these people talk about. Well, if you just teach them about their people, if you just teach them about, what kind of how they ate watermelon on whatever holiday it was, or how they ate whatever, some weird sounding word from one of our ancient languages that isn't used anymore. The geflupelflopple is what they ate. And if I just tell little Johnny and Stacy about geflupelflopple and how our people ate geflupelflopple on, the first new moon of the harvest, what is it, like 2 weeks after the whatever, everything will be okay. No, that's not how. They all knew that. Entire population of people knew that already. And yet anti-whiteism defeated them all. So you are not going to save your family. You're not going to save your children by just pulling them out of the school systems, private or public, and teaching them about their European history. It's not going to be enough. It is utterly feckless and short-sighted, and in most cases, your children will grow to hate you because you are a pariah to that society that they are going to have to go and live in. I cannot tell you how many times I have spoken with people who raised their children, and I don't want to put any group of ideas or ideology or religion on the spot because it's happened with all of them. But there are specific instances and specific conversations that I've had with people that said, don't know what went wrong. I raised them doing X, Y, and Z, and they all hate me now. Well, did you address anti-whiteism? Did you address this extraordinary infectivity of these ideas that are going to be passed to them, whether they get it at school, public or private school, or whether they get it from eventually becoming an adult and going out and having friends and then learning, my God, or a young adult, and they think, my God, my parents were weird and pariah and it's scum that they thought these, didn't they know? I mean, I can only be allowed into polite society if I'm anti-white. This is one of those bubbles that we're having right now. We're in the midst of it. People thinking that you're going to be able to save things, save your children, if you just do this. And my friends, it is not enough. And now Carlisle is somebody who was homeschooled, had a fabulous, not just a homeschooling education that was sterling, but also a moral education that was sterling. And she had able to access a lot of latent abilities that she had, genetic born abilities out of the architecture of her DNA that make her extraordinary. And yet she is going to be able to talk to you. She's going to start at the beginning. She's going to be able to talk to you about the importance of inoculating your children against anti-whiteism, because she will be able to share with you that she went out into the world and she was not, with all of that morality, with all of that education, she was not in a place to be able to properly articulate, effectively articulate a white positive position relative to all of those poisonous people around her. Best case scenario for somebody like Carlisle is that she somehow is able to doesn't help a person. If she doesn't find out about going free, she doesn't help a person. She does nothing for our people, and she navigates the world in the shadows until she dies of old age, instead of being devoured alive by the anti-white machinery. But sister, please tell folks what you're willing to share about, start at the beginning of your early life, or maybe give a general overview first and then go back and begin to address, because I know you've had a lot of conversations with people and they have a lot of questions about homeschooling. What's that like? And how do you go about it? And should you be scared about teaching your children? Are you able to teach your children? Do you have what it takes to teach? So many parents believe they don't have what it takes. When in reality, I guess they should realize maybe they should sit in on the teacher at school that's teaching their children. They would realize, well, they're about 100 times better than that woman or man. But please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me on again. So yes, I was homeschooled from the time I was of kindergarten age all the way to high school. And I did graduate high school at 16 and start college then at age 16 as well. And it was definitely the best gift that my family could have given me. It allowed us to be very close as a family. It also really allowed my family to impart their morals and values on me. And I think that is where that's where society changes, is starting at the home and starting with a traditional home life, so that people can grow up to be healthy and moral and have healthy relationships and healthy families and so forth. So I feel very blessed to have had that upbringing. However, without incorporating going free and the inoculation against the anti-whiteism and in the world and the anti-white agenda, it is significantly harder as an adult. I mean, you still have to exist. You still have to exist, even if you have never watched, as you said, have never watched mainstream television, and you are very traditional in your ways of thinking. Once you get out in the world and you have to coexist with people, and you have to have a job, and you have to, form relationships and so forth, you still are struggling because there is that critical piece that's missing.
Yeah, precisely. And thank you for pointing that out. There simply is, and it's so saliently obvious that you're going to have your children go from this cocooned environment out into a world where everyone virtually that they're going to be running into is anti-white. And how are they going to respond to this? It's obviously, it's proven in the past that knowing all of the lore isn't enough to protect you. They've been defeated that way. So what are you going to say? They're going to say, why are you such a racist? And you're going to say, Jack and Jill went up a hill. They had water. I don't know. I mean, it's just not enough.
Exactly. It's not enough. And as far as like the logistics of homeschooling, you can do it in all 50 states. It is absolutely legal. However, I did see someone in the chat say it's your God-given right. That's not true. It is a state-given right, and therefore it is dictated. It should be a God-given right, but it is not. It is dictated by laws and regulations, and I would encourage everyone to be aware of the laws of their state, and of course to cooperate with those laws. Every state is a little bit different. Usually you have to turn in a portfolio of what you teach your children and an outline of your curriculum. I would also encourage people to obviously don't just use the curriculum that your school, because once you tell them, I would like to teach my child at home, they will then say, well, here is the curriculum. And you don't have to take their curriculum. You can create your own. You can get it offline. There's a lot of resources out there. Obviously, it's not going to do you any good to take the anti-white textbooks and teach them from your kitchen table. Your child is still learning the same material.
Well, that's a really great point. And that's where we can sort of reel this in a bit and go right to the beginning. You're a parent, you have a young child or children, you get a look at what I just mentioned here that Jilly had sent, and others. I had a dad a couple days ago send a couple of books that I guess it's an intermediate child, I think a 7th grader, have to read this year. Take a look at the garbage that they are exposing your children to. Do not turn this over to anti-whites anymore. Don't be lazy about this anymore. And have a look at it, and you see, are you really going to allow? I mean, as a parent, you are permitting and therefore are complicit in the psychological torture of your children if you allow them to go to public or private school, and you are not combating what they are doing in these institutions. But for those who want to, thinking about could homeschool, this is the moment. They're whatever age they are, you're thinking, should I homeschool? It's really bad, but can I homeschool? I don't know if I can do this. So first let's address, because there are a couple issues here that people think about most. And folks, please do. You can financially gift questions. Those will certainly be addressed before we are finished with Carlisle today. But you can also just tag me and put questions in the live chat about homeschooling and in the question widget, and we will get to those. So I really appreciate that. One of the main questions, Carlisle, as you know, is people fearful that they're not going to be able to do it. Could you please speak to that?
And I would say to that, Absolutely, you can do it. You are your child's first teacher and your child's best teacher, and you most definitely can. I would encourage you to reach out. There's lots of homeschooling support groups online now, and my family made a lot of use of those. And a lot of times you can co-opt classes. So if there's one parent that might be really strong in math or biology or what have you, that parent will agree to teach an online class for all those children in those families, and then the other families will teach what their strengths are in. So it can be a very community building situation, even if it's done online. And I really encourage people to reach out because there's lots of resources out there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things that folks need to know. And one of the most powerful resources, our one and only, the great Brant Danger, is putting together with a team of good people, and that is School of the West. And is it .world? What is it, Brant? Go ahead and please put the link up there. If wherever you end up getting your materials from, and remember, it doesn't have to be some, as Carlisle is pointing out, some state-sanctioned or private entity-sanctioned material that you have to use, because they're going to be equipping you with the stuff that will poison your children just as though they are in these institutions. There are many places to get material from. It's not a question of whether or not you should or could or can. You must. You have to address what is going on. You cannot be complicit in the psychological abuse of your children. It is a disgusting thing. So there are all of these, all of this material that is available. You have School of the West that is day after day becoming more robust and more of a tool for our people in the homeschooling. So wherever you get your material from, make sure you avail yourself of the growing wealth of knowledge and tools available at School of the West, because that is going to be focused entirely in a white positive way. There's nothing white negative about it. It's not going to be telling you to go focus on some other group of human beings. It's totally white positive, and it is focused on going free and on delivering the lexicon to white children at the way that they can receive it. It's a brilliant thing that Brant is doing there. So please, you must do this. Please, Carlisle.
I would encourage people that is the critical piece to this, is that you do want to incorporate the going free philosophies, because it isn't enough. I have a family member, and I was raised in a very traditional family. My uncle was a preacher, and we have very traditional values in my family. And all my cousins and all my siblings were all homeschooled, and we were all raised with the same values. However, I have a family member who is struggling with being pulled in an anti-white direction because we were not given the tools to combat anti-whiteism in our homeschooling curriculum. And once you get to college, it is a lot harder to resist that pull, because you are bombarded with these messages from everywhere that you didn't even know existed, because you grew up in a situation where that was never part of your life.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing. It's a very personal thing, and every one of these, every homeschooling family I know, they have, it might be all of the kids end up anti-white. It might be one of them ends up anti-white. It might be half of them end up anti-white. If they're not being inoculated, then they're going to end up being anti-white. And now, what ends up happening with, say, somebody who is a child who is homeschooled, they get out into the world, and you have all of these people around you who are anti-white. Are you not still suffering psychologically because you don't know the story that you should be in? You're trapped in this anti-white narrative, and everyone around you is saying, well, it's the white race's fault it's this way. And you end up feeling like this person on an island in this horrible story with these hurricanes all around you, nowhere to go, no way to extricate yourself from this and put yourself into a nirvanic environment of our story. maybe speak to a minute of what's that like to be somebody surrounded by anti-whiteism and no idea about what it actually is.
And in a way, I think that was probably the only disadvantage of my childhood and my homeschooling, was that I was not prepared for that. So when I went to college at 16, I was getting all of these negative messages about myself and as, a white girl, and all these, meme pathogens that were subconsciously getting in my head that I had never had to deal with before. And it was very overwhelming. And it was really hard to find my way. And I think it made it a little harder for me to really find my footing in my adult life as well.
Precisely. I mean, it's just common sense. When you take a group, there's another group of mankind out there, and they teach their children. They all do this. We seem to be the only people who don't do it, but there are different degrees of success. They send their children out into the world armed with a worldview that has taught them about the rest of the world in a way that empowers their individuals, so that when they go out into the world, they're ready to take it on and achieve and do great things. And yet you have our people, and the people are thinking that you're going to teach them about the Oofa bread or whatever it is that they used to, whatever ritual it might have been, and that you're going to go out into the world, and then you run into this wall of people who hate you, who hate your people. You don't know how to respond to that. You think they must be right. You somehow missed out on some education somewhere because you were homeschooled. It is obvious, people. It is obvious. You need to empower them with the lexicon so that they are able to be resilient against this and achieve greater professional psychological health and professional success, and build families. And how are you going to build a family when you go out into the world and almost all of your potential mates are anti-white to various degrees, and they're signaling, they're villainy signaling this to you. So I get back for a second to the can I do? If there are any folks out there, write one in the chat right now, or no, use letter Y, a Y in the chat right now. If you think you could homeschool if you were really put on the spot right now, and put an N into the chat. If you think no, you're not entirely 100% sure that you would be able to homeschool your children, keeping them away from this poison. Let's see what people have to say about that. But I'm gonna throw it back to you. And do you have anything to share about those who were homeschooling you and family members? And did you ever see them struggle? Did they? Of course, naturally, we're all going to have flubs. We're all going to make mistakes, and then they get back up on their feet. So, as a child growing up in that environment, what was that like for you?
I honestly don't remember my mother struggling. She's an incredible person, and she is my hero, and I love her so much. I don't remember seeing her struggle. However, I will say that when I got to college, I remember very vividly the first experience I had with an anti-white professor was my philosophy professor, and my very first semester there, and he was extremely anti-white, and I didn't realize that at first. Like, I didn't understand why I felt so uncomfortable until I look back at the experience now. But being homeschooled and also being in a traditional family where we were taught that men lead and that women take a more submissive role, and we don't correct men and things like that, and he was male, so it was real that combined with homeschooling, it was really challenging for me to push back on that, and I really didn't push back on that, and I got a horrible grade in that class, and it was because I was writing papers that he didn't want to read. I was writing them in ways that he found offensive, and I didn't realize that until later on, actually reading your book, Going Free, and then I was able to look back on that and see what had happened there.
My God, folks, did you just hear that? Folks, do not go another step. Did you just hear that Carlisle was taught, she's homeschooled, and she was taught in a traditional sense that there's a role for a man in a relationship and a role for a woman. They do what their strengths are. Of course, there would be overlapping, and then of course, when one couldn't do something, it would stand. That's what we've always done in Western civilization. But that traditionally there are roles that, and why are those roles traditional? Why has that come down to us? Because it works. Because it works, right? It works. So that's why it comes down to us. And that's what they want to destroy it, because they want to destroy the white family and destroy the individual. But she's taught here that in growing up that the woman doesn't challenge the man. And then when confronted with an anti-white donkey, she ends up submitting to the anti-whiteism. She was unable to argue against the anti-whiteism coming from this guy because she had not been inoculated to that. What a tragedy. And how many times has this happened? And talk about this, I mean, just the number of tragedies here of young white women who were homeschooled or otherwise raised in traditional settings where they are taught to work with the men in their lives rather than dominate the heck out of them. And they're taught to work with them. And then these wonderful ladies go out into society and they end up submitting to some anti-white scum that dominates their world with anti-whiteism. And then she ends up mothering anti-whites to that scum. How many times we could never even calculate it. Look at what almost happened here. What she just shared. She's got a sibling that, although raised in the exact same environment, going anti-white, got to university and subjected to anti-whiteism by a male and then submitted to that, because thought that's not the right thing to do, is to dominate the man in the room. And so look at the tragedy that was by chance in this case averted. By chance, in most cases it wouldn't work out this way, but what we know for sure, if you inoculate those little girls who are otherwise taught to work with the men in their lives rather than to dominate them, that she's going to be infinitely better equipped when that anti-white male at the front of the room begins spewing anti-whiteism. That young woman is going to say, this is not one of the men that I work with. This is an anti-white. This is a villain. This is somebody who wants to destroy Western kind. I think you want to say something, Carlisle. Go ahead.
Oh, no, actually, I don't. What you're hearing is my puppy in the background. He's getting a little rambunctious. I apologize.
He is excited about going free. That's what it is. That the puppy is excited about going free. This is an actual puppy going free now. So we are. That's what we're hearing in the background. Well, we also have this issue, and what I would like to do now, it looks like just about everybody, I think every single person who participated in my question said yes, they think that they could absolutely carry out, and that's a wonderful thing to see. I see Greek American male is here. That's a wonderful thing to see, that the people here in service to white well-being are saying, I can absolutely educate my children from home. Thank God, bless every single one of you. The other question that comes up very often with homeschooling, and we have without question have to address. And folks, what I'd like you to do is tag me. I assume that there are going to be plenty of you out there who have questions about homeschooling. Maybe you don't have children. Maybe your brothers or sisters have children. How can you help? How can you talk to them about? Maybe you have questions about that. Tag me, and you can do it with a financial gift. You can just write it in the chat. You can put it in the question widget. Tag me, and we will get these to Carlisle before she goes. But there's another one. You have sort of right up there with the can't do it. It's how am I supposed to teach? How am I supposed to teach children things that they're supposed to learn? Right up there with it, maybe even higher, is when you homeschool children, they're just socially inept. And they just want to go live under a bridge somewhere, and you never hear from them. Although there's no evidence of that whatsoever, you hear that everywhere. And you know, one of the reasons why, I'll just say this quickly, I think so many people say this socialization thing because they're lazy and they don't want to do the work of educating their children. This is just an excuse. So let's just acknowledge right up front that the majority of people who are saying the socialization thing, because you've never seen it, every homeschool person I've ever met has functioned perfectly. In fact, they function like adults long before everybody who goes to public and private school. While people who are at still public and private school, who are learning primarily from whom? Their peers, other children. Homeschool children are already acting like adults. Why? Because they're around adults. Do you not somehow get socialized when you're around? So they're getting socialized and they're functioning like adults. They're able to get into the world as adults instead of having this failure to launch phenomenon where you have so many of these people who have reached sexual maturity and legal definition of an adult. And they can't behave like an adult. In fact, they carry the neoteny of childhood all the way through to their grave because of the fact that they never were able to become an adult. So I think that most of these people that say it's a socialization thing, it's just an excuse. And you are a word that I won't use on the Going Free show because it's a family show. And you need to get your head out of the sand, and you need to be courageous. You need to stop passing the buck and stop participating in the psychological abuse of your children. Stop using this excuse. You know it's an excuse. It's like, when did you ever come across I met a homeschool person, and they didn't want to come into the light. They just wanted to stay in shadows of buildings everywhere. It's nonsense. So please address this socialization question, Carlisle.
Absolutely. And I think, that in some ways it is also a really heavily anti-white projected message as well, that homeschoolers are antisocial, because you do see that a lot in the media. You'll see jokes made about homeschoolers, like on sitcoms and stuff. They'll talk about like the weird homeschooling kids next door, or they'll talk badly about, they'll just slip in like a line here or there. So I think that it is also perpetuated by society, but probably part of it is laziness as well. But I think some of it just is a lot of anti-white rhetoric because they don't want you teaching your kids. If you teach your kids, then they don't get to. So that, they really do want control of your children's and their minds, if at all possible. But honestly, there are so many opportunities for homeschool kids to socialize. Oftentimes in groups, there'll be like homeschooling groups where you get together and you have field trips together, and you go out, to the park together, sometimes like on a weekly basis. So there really is a lot of socialization. Also, you can do online classes where the kids are in a virtual classroom together in a live virtual classroom. So they're interacting, but then you're still aware of what your child is learning because you're hearing what's being taught over your laptop. So you're right there, and often the parent who's teaching that class. So it really is the best of both worlds. Your child gets to learn from another adult, learn how to work with that adult, and gets to participate in a group class setting, but you're still right there hearing what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. And this is, again, I mean, you're absolutely right. I concur 100% that it's a meme pathogen. You're 100% right. The anti-whites don't want you teaching your children. You might not teach them to be anti-white, and now worse, with Going Free, you might teach them how they can resist anti-whiteism. Imagine a generation of those individuals, of those proud white children going out into the world, that things would really be changing for us as a consequence. But the socialization issue, I mean, you are, like you said, there are all of these, there's a slew of opportunities, folks. And again, Carlisle is speaking from experience. She was homeschooled and did fabulously, and went out into the world and has done fabulously, and yet is sharing the challenges that she had because she wasn't inoculated. She didn't understand the world, and she could have very easy at any of these points, and did in fact fall prey to this professor, the first real anti-white philosophy professor that she encountered. Ended up falling prey. She would not have fallen prey to that. But the socialization, of course, is a red herring for exactly what you said. It's that the anti-whites want access to your children. They say it all the time. So be aware of this, folks. Your children are going to become socialized. Speak to them. Childhood is, as much as we make it a fun environment for children, It is training for adulthood, which lasts a lot longer than childhood. It is training for adulthood. You're training adults. Speak to them like adults. Have them around adults who are going to speak to them like adults and educate them in that sense. And you can, as Carlisle's pointing out, things that I don't know, there are all of these opportunities to have group settings where they can be taught together. Of course, you can involve the children in many other environments where there can be socialization with other children. But ultimately, and I want to get maybe some of the people in the chat actually can speak to this. Let me hear. Let's get some tags for me. And did you go to public or private school, and were you bullied, or did you observe the behavior of a bully and how children learned to submit to bullies? And isn't that a benefit to the anti-white regime, for children to be learning to submit to bullies? Ultimately, the anti-white regime, you get your children into the school, they learn how to submit to bullies, and then the regime puts the bullies in jail because the bullies are going to resist the regime and they're going to misbehave. So they just put them in jail. Everybody else learns how to submit. And that's exactly what the anti-white regime would like. So if you witnessed a bully, or you were bullied, maybe tag me and put that in. That maybe just say, yeah, I was bullied, or yeah, I saw bullies at my public school or private school or whatever it is. Carlisle, how often are people bullied? How often do children learn to submit to bullies when they're homeschooled?
They do not, and I never had a problem with bullying or peer pressure. However, that being said, I do think that, like I said earlier, it is important that you help your children be prepared for what the real world is going to be like. Because while I did not have to encounter bullies in my childhood, I have encountered them in my adult life, and I think it's been a little harder for me to know how to deal with them.
Well, precisely. And that is exactly what I was coming to. When you have your children under your care, and you're going to be socializing them with other children, maybe it's a scouting thing, maybe you get them into gymnastics or something, you're going to be present. You're not dropping them off. They're your children. And there is a bully present, a child is bullying your child or bullying other children. That is the opportunity to step in, not only for the bullied children, also for the bully, so that child will grow up to be a healthy, happy, functioning person rather than living in a cell of the anti-white regime. You can step in, and you handle the situation equitably, and your child does what? Your child learns how to respond to a bully rather than to submit in the absence of an adult who's going to say, no, you will not bully. How many people out there who are listening right now have had to have conversation after conversation, maybe nothing ever was done because there was a bully bullying your child at school, and the teachers would not or could not do anything. They didn't care because they have so many kids they have to try to get through the state mandated anti-white curriculum that they just couldn't deal with every bullying situation, and your child ends up learning how to submit. You can write that into the live chat as well. We're looking to see that, and the importance, therefore, of having your children home for homeschooling. Every year, it becomes more important to get them out, and never more than this year. But tomorrow, it'll be worse. The next day, it's going to be more anti-white. Stop looking for names like critical race theory. It's in the books. I'm just telling you, the little baby in the elementary school, 9 books. That's the year they're going to be going through this, learning how they are evil, of an evil people that has victimized every non-white race out there, guaranteed. And I looked at what was sent to me. No stories, no books about how white people are victimized by any non-white races. Carlisle, what else is on your mind about homeschooling that you've had conversations with people about, that you think is really important, that folks have to know, that they should know? For a lot of people, it's a mysterious environment, this whole idea of homeschooling. For a lot of people, there's a fear of the responsibility, and they're going to now be responsible for the child achieving or failing. For some people, it's going to be about, well, they want to watch their favorite television shows, or they want somebody else, they want to push the child. Folks, if you're of that state of mind, don't have kids. Let me just say that. But I want to pass this over to Carlisle, anything you have to what I just said?
I would just say that recently I did have a conversation with someone about homeschooling, and I said to her, she said, that's such a foreign thing to do. And I said, well, if you think about it, before public school was implemented in society, that's what everyone did. Like, that's what people did from the beginning of time. That's what colonial families did. That's what, that was the norm. And yet they obviously were taught to be social, and they obviously learned how to get along and work together because we're here now. So if they weren't able to do that, then how would we have been here? So, I mean, it's very normal, and it's very natural. I would say that it's actually more natural than dropping your kid off at an institution for 7 hours a day. It's only because society has made it normalized, and therefore people have come to accept it, that you put your child on a school bus and send them to strangers where they spend 40 hours a week with strangers raising them. That's not normal. That's not the way it was intended to be. Families should raise their children, and that is how we will be able to get back to traditional values and reclaim our destiny.
Beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. I'm going to take a look at some of these comments, and we're going to go through them. And folks, now's the time. If you have questions about homeschooling or anything else that you have for Carlisle while she's with us, we're going to be addressing those, and we'll hope to have her, I think, till maybe about 9:15 or so, and so about another 15-20 minutes or so, and then we'll let her go, and I think we'll be wrapping things up after that because it's already pretty late, and I got other things to do for White Wellbeing. But it's been marvelous to share all of this time with you all and all this information with you all. We have a great message from the great bass guitarist, who is an awesome shredder on the guitar, but he's also building a streaming platform that he says now with some friends of his that he says now is ready to use. And I have an account over there. He said we have financial gifts, I guess, are able to pass through there. And we take the same cut as entropy, says a 15%. Would love to have you restream there, brother. Well, thank you so much. And how exciting is that? And I would absolutely love to have your platform as one of the platforms that we can send the stream to, and perhaps do some streams, just some isolated streams there, and maybe some music ones at first. But that is such great news. These are the folks, adults in the room, that are taking charge of our situation, because they intend to be a part of the cure and the effort to recapture our destiny. Bass guitarist, big round of raucous emojis for bass guitarist. I got an account over there. He said that instead of cheating against me, we know that as soon as I got on all these alternative platforms, we find out not only is it YouTube who shadow bans, we proved that D Live, as soon as I was on D Live, was shadow banning me. And I would, if I had to put money down right now, I would bet that, I don't know how, but how they would do it. I'm sure there's a way. But Odysee is shadow banning. We'll wait and find out, and then it'll be no surprise when they say, well, it's actually they do as well. But yeah, we have proven it with D Live now, and wherever you're going to go. So bass guitarist said that he would do the opposite for me. I wouldn't be shadow banned over on that platform. So very excited about that. Thank you so much, brother. And we have Rory has a call that we're going to take next week. All right, Rory, because it is getting late for you, late for us. And I'm just back from this trip, up early, and I got a bunch of things to do before we get to bed. But Rory's got some great information he's going to share with us as one of our great champions over there in the UK. We love that guy. And so we'll be talking. He's number one on the call list. Brother, you're number one on the call list next week. We have Jilly writing here. Yes, she was bullied in Catholic school, she says. She was one of the people who was bullied in Catholic school. So you might think this place is going to be safe. No, apparently not. Promethean Promulgation says they don't just teach, but indoctrinate children to, quote, never fight ever, telling them that fighting will end in some horror story, then never do anything about the ones bullying. So how about that? Isn't that interesting? At public school, they're telling you, hey, you never fight. And then when a bully beats it, and I've witnessed this as well, and it's a very curious thing where you're telling you always to be this submissive individual. And then when somebody actually decides they're going to do the opposite, they're bullying everyone around them. There's no like commensurate punishment. They just essentially get to continue the bullying. And let me tell you something about that quickly, folks. We have a great, I guess, ability to grow these mirror neurons. It is a natural thing for us, but it has to be nurtured, and so that we feel others' joy, we feel their pain, we feel their anguish, we feel what they are feeling. But that has to be nurtured in the earliest years of life. Children need to be loved unconditionally for the earliest years of their life. If you are dropping them off at daycare, or you are dropping them off at kindergarten and first and second grade and these things, they're not receiving unconditional love. They're not getting love at all from these people. You are creating these psychopaths in the making, where either they feel nothing at the pain of others, or maybe they end up going the other direction and they feel pleasure at the pain of others. So this is another element of why everything that we created that was so beautiful in Western civilization is coming completely undone. We have a white student transmission, says he went to public schools in Los Angeles. I guess enough said, so much bullying there. Great Rory is here, and he says he went to public school in England, and he said he had to beat up the house bully, no problem after that. Well done. Sometimes you have to defend yourself, and in that case, it's Rory. What you have just written here, we could take out a couple of words, and that is the exact thing you have to do in where? Prison. That is the exact same thing you have to do in prison. You go to prison, and the monster comes up to have his way with you, or her way, your woman who ends up in jail, and you have to be able to defeat that monster to be left alone. So what we're pointing out here is that public and private school is just like prison when it comes to bullying. My God. Promethean Healing writes here, I went to private school until high school and public in high school. I experienced bullying, and yes, if you were not anti-white, or even if you were, your taste in clothing and music. I guess he was going on to say, yes, it ends up being, all of that ends up being anti-white, because they're telling you what is cool, what's the cool, and anybody who's not doing the cool thing is lame, is backward, is all of these different words depending on the generation. Western Renaissance says bullies were everywhere. I was suspended 9 times for fighting back and was almost expelled. I was a decent student who was active in many extracurricular activities. Public school in Balt. So I guess that's Baltimore. Oh my God. Oh my God. You survived that. Wow. A salute. If that's what if you're talking about Baltimore and you survived that. Bros and Bros says, school and prison are both corrupt institutions. Thank you for that, brother. And people are agreeing. Yes, public and private school, just like prison. I'll jump over here really quickly and see what we had. Elaine saying she had to leave a little earlier, and she's looking forward, though, to listening in the replay, everything that Carlisle has to say about public schooling. Nathaniel Nelson was contributing a little bit earlier to some MCs, to these other people coming in. They're just hard workers, and because Western civilization, we didn't have any hard workers or do anything great. But you can also look at these places where these wonderful people came from, and you can see what industry they have. I mean, they're just so industrious. That's why we're all moving to their countries, don't you know? Mm-hmm. Franklin was here, says, Jason actually, did Jason actually wear the no white guilt mask at the airport? I did. And that would be epic, he writes. Well, it was epic, my friend. Machiavellius was the one who gave the financial gift earlier. Thank you so much, dear brother. Thank you for that. I deeply appreciate it. Rory here said, didn't you eat any grits when you were in South Carolina? As a matter of fact, I did not this time, but I know grits and I have eaten them. And so not this time, though. But thank you for that question. Franklin says, asking me to interview, I will add that individual to the list that Jared, George, and I are looking at for the show. Thank you for that, Franklin. And then we had that comment from Bass Guitarist. If you have any comments, let it rip. It was White Rider. Let's get a big raucous round of emojis for the great White Rider. It was indeed White Rider who sent the masks. Thank you so much, brother. That was magnificent. And let me tell you, folks were looking when they were reading it, but nobody said anything to me. I thought I was going to be asked to change the mask because they now have on that particular airline I was on, they said it has to be one of our acceptable masks. But I guess they decided it was acceptable. But thank you so much for that, White Rider. And could you imagine an anti-white coming up saying, you should have white guilt? Good. Tell everybody, all the white people here, how they should have white guilt. Thanks for that. I'm going to take a look. And I guess, Carlisle, do you have anything to say to anything I just said here?
The only thing that I wanted to say was someone in your chat said they had questions, and they said that they left them on Entropy.
Let's go over to Entropy. We're going to first read Mick Dozer. Let's get a round of raucous emojis for Mick Dozer, financially gifting $25 US. Thank you so very much. And writing here, we homeschool our children. We've taught our children pride in who we've descended from and where our people have come. All of our social studies is focused on the reality that our entire world was industrialized and innovated by Western kind. Our kids are measuring 2 to 3 grades higher in competency than public school peers. Very well done. Thank you so much. That's a service to Western kind. It's a service to White Wellbeing. Thank you for that. And make sure that you're inoculating those babies with the lexicon and dialectics so that they will be equipped in a way that our dear Carlisle Hill was not equipped when she got out into the world, so that we don't end up with a sibling or 1 or 2 or whatever that ends up going anti-white as a consequence. God bless you. Thank you for that service. Promethean promulgation in the question widget says it's Goffle Flupple Flopple going to be served at the next Goffle Flubble Flubble going to be served at the next meeting? No, I don't think so. I think we will save that for those families who think that as long as you teach the kids about Gaflaffle Flupple Flupple, that they will be fine. They're going to be great. They'll learn that at some weird point in our history, we had a really weird sounding food that we ate at the second moon on the fortnight after the flies crested from the dark hills. And that will make everything better. Roy Danton says here, is there a maximum age until which you can homeschool until it gets too difficult? Carlisle.
There is not. And that's what I was talking about earlier, because my mom was not, she wasn't very well versed in higher level math or maybe some of the more intense sciences. What she did was join a homeschool co-op. And in that case, other families that had members that were well versed in those subjects went ahead and taught those classes. And then my mother taught classes that she knew about. So with those kind of higher level subjects, you just want to make sure that you form either a real life community or online. There are actually, you can purchase homeschool classes online by the class from various entities that are, you can just Google like homeschooling classes online and a whole list of them will come up.
Well, that's a fantastic suggestion. Thank you so much for that. And that's a great question, Roy. Great question, great answer. This is how we grow together. And thank you so much. Roy also asks, how does this work for jobs that require university degrees? Could you still get those when being homeschooled? Carlisle.
You certainly can, because I have a university degree. I did go to a 4-year college, and I did so following my homeschooling. You can still take the ACT and the SAT, the college entrance exams, as a homeschooled student. You can just register for those online and take them at a testing center, and colleges and universities will accept homeschool transcripts.
Yeah, exactly. That, and I would say this, my opinion when it comes to university in this age right now, with the federal government using our tax dollars to back up all of these loans, it has had the expected outcome of driving costs for university through the stratosphere. So if you're homeschooled and you went and you had a real desire to be a biologist or something of this nature where you need a laboratory, then you go out, you take the test, SAT, etc., and you head off to university, and you use their laboratory to get this education, and then at the end, you hope to get the job that will help to pay back these exorbitant costs for university. Having said that, my recommendation is, unless you need a laboratory of some variety, like you could also imagine a law laboratory being the same way. So it doesn't necessarily need to be filled with beakers or dead frogs. But unless you need an environment like that, do not go burden yourself with this exorbitant bill that you will have to pay for many, many years to come, especially when you're white and it's getting increasingly difficult to be able to get a job because you are discriminated against on the basis of your bio spirit. So instead, equip yourself with some other avenue of work once you have your education for as far as you need to go. Maybe it would require something like a inexpensive local university or something like this, a community college, whatever it takes. Make it as inexpensive as you can, and then get into the field and get trained in more than one. Have like a primary job that you want to do, and get to that that you think you're really going to like, but get trained elsewhere, because this is how we're going to survive what is getting increasingly worse for us in our environment. The ability to keep a job, the ability to pay our bills, etc. Live also within your means. That's going to make it a lot easier as well. But very important, you can see here, Carlisle and so many others homeschooled. They do fabulously from actually getting trained, especially when their minds are sponges and they're just sucking up everything. Children just absorbing everything around them. Get them the information that will empower them for their education to come. So you need all of the basics, none of the anti-whiteism. You need the lexicon and the basics of what they'll need to get their education as they move on and away, and then they'll be inoculated against the anti-whiteism and be able to then head out into the world successfully. Great question.
Absolutely.
And
I would say that as far as university goes, I agree with you. I think that is a waste of money for most people. Obviously, unless you're going to medical school or something that you know is going to require that 4-year degree, I wouldn't do it, especially for women. I think women should devote that time in their life to finding a mate and forming a family. And I think that it offers a lot of anti-white indoctrination as far as encouraging women to drink and engage in multiple sexual partners and so forth. I think that is just, I think it's very poisonous for women, and I don't think it's necessary for a lot of men. A lot of homeschoolers do something that they call apprenticeships. So families that have businesses or that have a member that is trained in a field will take a high school homeschool student into their care and kind of teach them what they know, and that is often really good training for future jobs.
That's a great point. And that's something that our people did very well for centuries. We easily moved from the basic education of all the basics that we need into environments that were accessible for apprenticeships, and you could never go wrong in learning how to repair vehicles, do carpentry, garden, etc. There's so many things you can do. Even veterinary, and you can even go into apprenticeships with physicians and begin learning right from them. And then if you want to go on to do more and get more of an education, you can do that. This is the kind of thing that we can do. And if you are a parent and you know the people who are going to be educating and overseeing your children as they are getting older, and by the way, that when you have that relationship with your child that you're homeschooling, that you are you're their parent, you're their school, you're their teacher, you're their friend, all in one. They're going to be able to tell you about things going on in their world a lot easier than the child that is sent off, forgotten about by the parents, and ignored ultimately in these prisons that they call public and private schools. So this is a great point you're making. We have Slots here writing that the idea that working hard is good is an MP. He says work smarter. Well said. We do want to work smarter. It doesn't matter. You could really put your nose to the grindstone in a dumb way. And in fact, my dear brother Slots is I don't know if he meant to do. He probably did because he's a bright guy. But there are many people who are white sympathetics, and they work hard and dumb as all get out. They just keep doing what doesn't work, and then hate on those who are doing something smarter. Thank you so much, Sloths. And we have a point made by M.A. that I wanted to share. It didn't tag me, but I was lucky enough to catch it, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Carlisle. He writes, I didn't necessarily see bullying, but I saw how the social pecking order works. And the skill that is taught is going along to get along. Isn't that something? And that would be far more common than a bully. Great point there, M.A. Indeed, the social pecking order plays itself out, and then these children, instead of standing up for themselves, they learn how to get along by going along. Carla, what do you have to say to that? And how is it different for you? And I think you have been, don't speak to any specific moments, but you have been able to stand up for yourself at times that maybe others would have just gone along with the flow because they learned how to do it at public or private school.
I agree. I think that there are advantages and disadvantages to homeschooling when it comes to going along to getting along. I think that sometimes a homeschooled child might actually be more inclined as an adult to go along to get along because they want to fit in. And they want to please those around them, and they also want to be quote unquote not considered weird or antisocial. So I think that sometimes that might work against you, but I think that the core of your family being able to implement their values into you, that will stay with you, and that has stayed with me. And because of that, I have been able to resist a lot of peer pressure and so forth. Like I don't drink. My family doesn't think it's appropriate for women to drink. So I've never drank, and I do not drink. And I've been offered drinks many times in college and in my adult life, and I do not. So I think that the values that really matter the most, that's what you should really work hard to instill in your children with the time that you have with them, because they will, that will stick.
Very well said. And that's a great point also, because if you're homeschooled, and what are you going to end up? You want to fit in. What are you fitting in with? So all of these, but Antiwhiteism, all of these people who think that they're just going to teach about the weird food that was made after the fourth moon, whatever, that is, they're going to send their kids out into the world who are going to want to get along with anti-whites. That is not a place. That is not a good place to be. And yet, folks, listen, if you're of that mind frame and you think, wow, Jason is a jerk, he's making fun of my strategy, then get over it. Just get over it. I am fed up with these people who say, oh, it's you're being too tough. The Western civilization is burning down around us. And then the people who will also say you're being too tough are the same ones who the next minute who say we have to have a bloody fist. I mean, just shut up. Just shut up with all of this. Deal with it. You know that this is the case, it's not going to be good enough to teach them about our lore and tell them to just be proud, because white people were far prouder in the past than they could ever be today. And the anti-whites defeated them. We have Jay Link tagging Masumi Rabbit and writing, he writes here, I wore wooden clogs to school once and got sent home. I had, I guess, learned my great-grandma was Dutch on my mother's side. Well, they obviously didn't want you expressing the culture of the Dutch wherever you were going to school. Because the wooden claw, I mean, I would think if anything else, they're probably like, wow, how does that feel to walk around? Does that hurt? The First Lady of the American Theater is with us. Great to see you. She writes, I was bullied in Catholic school. She writes that as well. And she said it was predominantly some, I guess, be anti-white, non-white kids that bullied her. She said, pulled her hair and ganged up on her. They were already kind of sexualized. And I was an innocent little girl. Very traumatizing. I bet it was. And my God, do not do this. Do not do this to our children today. Art Acrobats financially gives $3.14. Thank you so much, dear brother. And he writes, we are family, all white brothers and sisters, and me. Well, God bless you. I appreciate that. Thank you for those words and that kind of financial gift, dear brother. We will refresh that, and it looks like we have kept Carlisle a little longer. Let me see if there's anything over here that we have. I don't think we've missed anything. So, folks, if there's anything really quickly, you better say it, because we're going to have Carlisle give us her final thoughts. She'll be back, though. Don't worry about it. And this isn't the last time you're going to see her. If you want to talk about homeschooling in the future, you have more questions. You're probably the most likely case is that you're going to be listening in replay and you think, God, I wish I was live for that one because I have this and that and the other question. Well, we'll have her back. We'll talk about homeschooling again, and you'll be able to get those questions to her. But Carlisle, before we let you go, anything else you want to share? It could be about homeschooling. It could be about anything that's going on right now.
I can't think of anything. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. You're fantastic. We're obviously going to have you back on this issue, but we'll also have you back for all of this wild and crazy legislation. Boy, that just took me back to a very old Saturday Night Live skit that I probably shouldn't have seen. But all of this legislation that is insane, and we'll be talking about it. And so much of that stuff, folks, that we have addressed has come from Carlisle or another individual, a guy, and it has come to fruition. So this is a way to peer into the crystal ball of what the anti-whites are doing, and be able to predict for all of those around us in a way that we can seed with the lexicon what they're about to see. When they see it, they think you're God. Sister, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to let you go. And folks, we will be right back after this very short break.
Thank you.
our own reflection. Can't they just take their piece and walk away? Rising like a blooming flame of insurrection, innocence designed away in swift decay. They'll fade away. Regrets their treason. They'll fade away. Rebirth of reason. Every day they're vanishing without a kind farewell. Re-emerge as someone new, their AI can't tell. Could it be this game we play will never end? One step forward, one step back, ad nauseam. They'll fade away. Regret their treason. They'll fade away. Rebirth of reason. They'll fade away. Regret their treason. They'll fade away. Rebirth of reason.
Does that make sense? What a great conversation that was, and looking forward to having Carlisle back to discuss more of homeschooling with us. Very quickly, we're going to wrap up this wonderful Going Free after a magnificent Dixie Fest this weekend and a lot of traveling by yours truly on short sleep. But we'll be back. We'll take calls next week. It'll be the whole 9 yards. Does that make sense, Lost Rights? Exactly. Does it make sense? I wish it would for more people. Sometimes it's like that scene from that movie. Again, a movie I'm not endorsing, by the way. I think I saw the whole thing, but maybe not. But it was the scene from a movie called Spaceballs when the guy who is playing the equivalent of Darth Vader in this comedy movie tells the gunner to shoot some warning shots across the nose of another ship. And then the shots get a little close, and he says, "Careful, you idiot." I said, "Across her nose, not up it." And the guy spins around, pulls up his visor, and he says, "Sorry, sir, doing my best." And the poor fellow is horribly cross-eyed. And he then says, the Darth Vader character says to the commander beside him, he said, "Who hired that man?" And then another guy from the balcony and on the ship says, "I did, sir." And he's horribly cross-eyed. And then the Darth Vader character says to the captain, "Who's he?" And then he said, "He's whatever, a major, I don't know, Ben," and then two words there, and you'll have to look it up to see the scene. And it's a rear hole, and so he said, "In the gunner," and he said, "He's a rear hole as well, Philip, I don't know, third class, whatever, rear hole." And then the guy saying, that's Darth Vader, says, "How many rear holes do we have on this ship?" And then like 90% of all of these guys, they stand up and they salute. And then he said, "I knew it. I'm surrounded by rear holes." And sometimes it feels like that. That's why we're happy to be in the advanced placement where that's not taking place. We are surrounded by real champions. And one of the champions right now who is hard at work, and I have to see the rest of these videos, he's making amazing work. We want to mention him. Actually, we have the community share that I want to mention as well. Where did it go? Where did it go? Because he is doing amazing work as well. Here it is. Imminent Rain, ladies and gentlemen. He is, I mean, enough said right there, right? So much done by this champion, talented beyond imagination. He is almost finished with song number 7 on telling the story with his rock music of Prometheus Rising. So very excited about that. Cannot wait to be able to share that with you all. You can find him on YouTube. And it is, wow, it's just a bunch of letters. And so maybe if one of the mods could find Imminent Rain on YouTube, and then they could share that link so that you all can begin following Imminent Rain. It's just, if you go over to YouTube and you put in the channel name to pare it down, Imminent Rain, and hopefully it'll come up. And that's how it has for me in the past. Please follow Imminent Rain over on his channel. The other one to follow that I wanted to mention as part of the announcements is Intellectual Embargo. He's making really some fantastic videos, taking deep dives, deep intellectual dives on the Going Free lexicon and how it intersects with the world and why it therefore works, and discussing these things in some more detail. This is something that is sorely needed. And for a very long time, we've been looking for folks who can step up, who want to step up, who want to do this kind of thing, who want to take the deep dives and say, this is why Going Free works. Intellectual Embargo. I don't have his a URL for the channel either. Perhaps if one of the mods can find that before we wrap up. Again, pare it down if you're looking for it on YouTube. Intellectual Embargo. And I'll be checking out his videos this week, and maybe we'll have something part or whole of one of the recent videos to play, because he's got some great stuff that we really want to get out to our brothers and sisters. So you're going to want to follow him, and you're going to want to share this. He's got a great delivery. He's got a lucid mind. He's speaking clearly and slowly. That's the kind of thing that we want, because this is such revolutionary work, and it's so foreign looking to people. Hey, a couple more things here before we go. We're going to have one item from the mailbag. What do we call it? The thaumatological for thaumaturgy mailbag. And we will take a look at it in just a moment. But I want to point out something else that came in the mail. What was it? I guess this was also last week, maybe 2 weeks. Our wonderful Glass Smith, our very own, has produced some magnificent, 2 more magnificent pieces for us I wanted to share. Take a look at that little beauty. That is something that he made. What a chance. Let's get a raucous round of emojis for that creation, what he's done here. And as well for Intellectual Embargo and Imminent Rain. Gentlemen, the wonderful people, let's get a, really, let them know you love them. This is some fantastic. And this, Oh, I cannot wait to wear this for you all, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at that. Look, I mean, I can tell. I'm looking at it on the screen right now. It is not conveying how pretty it is. It is really quite lovely. I'll have it on maybe the next Going Free or sometime soon. Thank you so much, dear brother, and thank you for everything that everybody is doing. Let me actually, I will go over to Avatar for a moment because I was not entirely ready running in here for the show. But I mean, this is what happens when you are actually serving White Wellbeing and you're out in the world and you're making it happen. And sometimes you're flying by the seat of your pants. You all know how many times I've had to jet off to places, and it has been a joy, though, to be able to serve our people. Quite honestly, you end up in scenarios where things don't always work out great. Sometimes they work out horrible, but you have to have the passion. You have to have the drive. You got to know why you're really doing this. If you're going to continue to be effective for our people, if you're going to end up doing anything, if you're going to be a person of character. And so it's a great joy to be able to work with you all this way. And here we have, out of the mailbag, Iron Will, fit and healthy at any age, ladies and gentlemen, has sent us just a magnificent gift in service of White Wellbeing. He writes here to all of us, Promethean hails. This gift is a small token of appreciation for all that you have done for our people. It is a replica of what King Leonidas of Sparta most likely last held in his hand, as you may wield it metaphorically. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just start that sentence again. It's a replica of what King Leonidas of Sparta most likely last held in his hand as he laid down his life for Western civilization. Indeed, we all know that story, or you should, about Thermopylae. May you wield it, metaphorically, of course, in your continued fight against our victimizers, the anti-whites. I and many others will stand beside you, shoulder to shoulder, shields up, spears thrust forward, with hope in our hearts, a song in our throats, as we surge forward toward recapturing our destiny. Stay strong, stay safe, my brother. Sincerely, Iron Will, fit and healthy at any age. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at is this called a coppice? Is that what it's called? Look at this magnificent replica of this Spartan sword that was potentially held by King Leonidas at Thermopylae in defense of Western civilization. A magnificent tool for those moments when words that have worked to create a people then get used and become swords in defense of that people. Beautiful. God bless you, brother. This is truly a magnificent gift. Thank you so very much. I'm going to put this up on the wall. It's not going to, that blade, the edge of that blade is not going to be profaned in the least. Thank you so very much for this. Get a big, raucous round of emojis for this wonderful gift from Iron Will, fit and healthy at any age. A glorious gift, if there ever was one. Let me set this right here. I don't want to lay my flesh open or damage the artwork there. What a magnificent thing. Jennifer P is here. I'm going to take a quick look to make sure we didn't miss anybody before we wrap up tonight. And what an exciting night it has been. And with all of you, after a very exciting weekend, looks like we're blank over in entropy, so we're good there. This is refreshing. Let me see over on... Thank you all so very much for celebrating. Rory, you don't know how right you are, my friend. You don't know how right you are. So it is Could you auction off, First Last says, could you auction off artwork? I can't see why not. And that, absolutely. Thank you for that question. Good job tonight, says First Last. Yes, isn't that true that somebody wrote here, so it screen let by, something about, didn't Nick Fuentes used to hold a knife up to the screen? That's right, he did. Because somebody told me he had the nickname of, was it Nick the Knife or something like this? So this is not going to be held up to the screen. It will go on a wall, but it is fantastic. Thank you so very much. Iron Will, fit and healthy at any age. Okay, good. We're blank over here. We didn't miss anybody. What a magnificent time with all of you. I love every single one of you folks. We're going to have, it's Nick the Knife. Was that Eternalism is saying, or Nick, was it Nick the Sword? That looks like a sword. I thought it was, oh yeah, Raymond says Nick the Knife. So that's what it was. All right, well, that's what he was then. Is he still Nick the Knife? And is that pronounced copious or copis? Something like this. I can't remember. A copious. Is it, or copious? Is that it? A copious. Oh, that's funny. Jilly wrote, you'll cut your eye out. That's from that movie. You'll shoot your eye out. You'll cut your eye out, kid. Now, I'm going to be careful with that thing. The blade is quite sharp. But what an honor that is to be likened to the great Leonidas. I'm no king. I'm another guy with every single one of you, and I will stand up shoulder to shoulder, side by side with you all. We're going to make this happen as a team, or it's not going to happen. It's going to be done with love, hope, and redemption in our heart. And yes, it's going to be done with words, I'm afraid to say. It's going to be words the whole way. That is what has served our people. That's what served the anti-whites. That's how they conquered Western civilization. Don't listen to somebody telling you otherwise. They either have good hearts or good desire, but they're just wrong. They're just bad. Like the kid who was your friend, but he said, hey, you know what would be a good idea? It sounds like it'd be fun. Let's ride our bicycles off the edge of the dam. Let's see what happens when we do that. No, Philip, we're not going to ride down the face of the dam on our bicycles. It is a 60-story drop. We'll die. So it's just, it might be somebody like that you just have to say, no, you obviously have a good heart. You want to have, you have sympathy for our people. You want good things, but you don't have a lick of sense. So you should talk less, listen more, and then we'll get on with recapturing our destiny. All of us here are the true champions in service to white well-being. You all are amazing people. It honors me deeply to be able to serve white well-being with you all in this, the only genuinely peaceful, loving endeavor there is to recapture our destiny, the only one that has shown any benefit to our individuals, to our families, the ability to enable our people to bring folks over from their circles of influence where they have only been hated and rejected before. It is a true blessing that we are finally gaining the momentum. And think about this as I leave you tonight, but I'll be back with the great Jared George, be back with Mark on PWR, be back on a rolling if have to be. And of course, next Sunday, going free again, 5 Eastern time. Think about this. With as tiny a group that we have here compared to the overall, these people saying, one of the criticisms, of course, is don't listen to Jason, don't listen to those people going free, because nobody listens to them going free. It's like, what was the saying, Yogi Berra? Nobody goes there because it's so crowded. That is how dumb that is. With this tiny group of people, when they say it's just such a small group, that's why nobody's listening, because he has, what did the one guy say? I had the charisma. Actually, I thought this was pretty funny. The charisma of a dead mackerel. That was pretty good. But when they're saying things like that, I want you to see what I see. The men and women, a small number of whom have pushed the concept into social discourse that destroys anti-whiteism. What more do we have in store as our numbers our influence, our power continues to grow. God bless every single one of you. I love you. Let's go free.